Order, please. This regular meeting of the Joshua Basin Water District Board of Directors for March 19, 2025 is now in session at 5:30. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Determination of a quorum. General Manager Johnson, a roll call, please.
President Flowen.
Present.
Vice President Buell.
Here.
Director Fick.
Here.
Director Jarlsberg.
Here.
Dr. Short.
Here. Thank you very much. Directors are present in the boardroom. There is no request for remote participation. We have a quorum. Approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve this evening's agenda? Make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion approved. Public comments. This designated time is for members of the public to provide comments on any district-related or related matter, whether appearing on the agenda or not. Under provisions of the Brown Act, the board is prohibited from taking action on items not listed on the agenda. At the discretion of the board president, comments on a particular agendized item may be deferred until that item is heard. Is there any public comment? Not yet. Well, there'll be other opportunities too. My General Manager Johnson, is there electronic, written, or voicemail public comment?
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you very much. Public comment time is now closed. Consent calendar. Consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial to be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. If a board member would like an item handled separately, it will be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. We have one item. It's the draft minutes of the board meeting, March 5, 2025. Does anybody want to remove that item from the consent calendar? None. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Motion carried. Discussion calendar. Appointment of a new Citizens Advisory Council member. General Manager Johnson, please.
Thank you. We have two folks here today that have applied for the CAC, and I'd like to introduce Tammy Zimmerman first, if you would take the lectern and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in joining the CAC.
Came here when I was a year old. I've been here for 55 years. Recently moved to Joshua Tree a couple of years ago. 29 pumps for a short time. I work at a neighboring water company district, so I feel like I have knowledge to help the community understand how hard it is to do what all these guys do.
Perfect.
Do you have any questions?
Questions from the board, please. Vice President Doolittle.
Hi, thank you so much for your interest. I really appreciate it. I'd like to know, what is your perception, if you can share, of how you think the water district JBWD is doing?
I am concerned about the water rates and the increase, but I get that you got to do it to cover costs and things have changed. The state's going to be changing. I don't know if you've noticed from the reporting how it's increased and they want more information, and with that comes money. So I think overall, as good as we are, like the one I'm at, I think with what you're handed.
And what do you like about the business of water? What is interesting
It's
to
just
you?
fascinating to me. I was in healthcare for 28 years
Uh-huh.
and going to the water district, just, you don't realize the impact and what everyone has to do to get water to your tap. We take it so for granted.
Mhm.
In the tap line, you got it, but with what I've learned, and I work in the operations department, so I'm around production, water quality, capital replacement, which I think you guys call it something different here, construction maintenance. I know, I have so much knowledge of what goes to the pipe to the ground and what they have to do to test it in the states. You know, changing the MCLs. Chromium. Yeah, so I get all of that, yeah, it's a well, like right now, we're having to pull a well, I mean, just, it's fascinating,
Yeah,
and I don't think people understand.
they sure don't. No, they sure don't. Yeah, and you just kind of mentioned the water rates earlier, and I just wanted to say, and you may know this, but just for the record, that you know, the reason our water rates are expensive is because they thought they thought Joshua Tree is going to be a lot more occupied, a lot more population. And so here we have this vast infrastructure that has to be supported by a little over like 5,600 connections. So those ratepayers have to cover that big infrastructure. So, yeah. Well, that's all for me. I want to, again, thank you so much. It would be fantastic to have someone with your knowledge, and I appreciate you even wanting to do it.
Thank you.
Director Fick?
Okay. Well, on the build out thing, just for people to know, for the longest time, up until about 8 years ago, the county was figuring 1,000 people per square mile. So we're 96,000 people supposedly by the county system, but that was probably for grants and whatever. Now, as far as you coming onto the CAC, I think that's a tremendous asset because you have knowledge of the High Desert Water District, immense knowledge. How long you been there?
6 years.
2019.
6 years. Okay. Well, it's a lot of it's really good. The only thing, I've been out here 40 years and I've been a detractor of High Desert Waters for many years. In fact, I could have sued them once back in 2008. They had a $20 million through reclamation grant, but their tortoise survey was so bad, and got to do that for federal purposes, that they didn't even know what county they were in. Literally, they 132 pages, wrong county, Riverside County. They didn't know what they were doing. So, but recently, and our general manager has stated as such, there's Joshua trees. And the study that was paid for by the High Desert Water District, they did 3 different locations and they found the biggest density they could, 3 to 7 times the normal density of Joshua trees. And that's okay. Anecdotal.
Where's your question?
My question is, well, on that situation, they called it average, which it was not average at all whatsoever. So that's the only part we have. And I'll put my comments to the CD, whatever. So overall, I think it would be a really good asset for CAC. Just my concern would be statements by the High Desert Water District regarding Joshua trees. That's the only thing I have.
Anything to do with that part.
Oh, good, I suppose.
Except maybe the connection, because I do the connection system.
Yeah, well, being that they built the whole thing and they were behind on doing the sewer for, 25, 30 years. There's a lot of awkward adaptations of sewer to Yucca Valley, and you have our sympathies on that one. That's about all I've got.
Director Jarlsberg?
I also appreciate your interest and willingness to add a few more hours to your day occasionally. I wondered if you attended the meeting that just happened of CAC.
I did, yes.
Okay, good.
It's important to be here.
Yeah, I was hoping that because anybody that is interested in being on the CAC, I think they should explore it, for a little bit before they actually get on it, so they understand what it is, other than just what's stated on the website. Also, I think it's interesting that you live in Joshua Tree and work for another water district. It gives really an interesting perspective. So I'm through the committee, or the council is looking forward to your experience. So I appreciate it. And I think that's all I had too. Thank you.
Director Short?
Okay. Have you attended any of our board meetings? Not the CAC, but the,
Seen them online a couple times.
okay,
Oh,
They are at the same time ours is,
yeah,
so
right.
usually I'll put it on my computer and listen while,
Mhm.
yeah, unless it involves me, then I go.
okay. Yes. It just completely slipped my mind. Like another question lined up. Sorry about that. I guess that's all for me.
If you think about it, raise your hand or something, we'll recognize it. Sometimes it takes a minute.
Thought I had it written down.
DAC Chairperson David Carrillo, comment please.
Think with her knowledge and she speaks really well. Easy to talk to, good personality. I think she would go really good with our with the CAC. We're looking for people that know about water, are interested in it, love it, find it fascinating as you, because it is very fascinating. And like you said, people do not realize what goes into it. And so we could use even representing the ratepayers and sharing your knowledge. So that's great. We're excited. I hope that you would be a part of it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I was just excited when I read your resume. I thought it was, well, it was surprising for one thing. I mean, you're eminently qualified for this, and I'm delighted that you're going to be around.
Thank you.
Is what they call them now, influencers, you'd be an influencer. Any other public comments?
I'd like to work with them.
Well, very hard. Is there a motion from the board to appoint Cammie Zimmerman to the Citizens Advisory Council?
So moved?
Second,
I'll second.
General Manager Johnston, a roll call, please.
President Flynn.
Yes.
Vice President Doolittle.
Yes, with pleasure.
Director Vic.
Yes.
Director Jarlsberg.
Yes.
Director Short.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Next, I'm gonna do my best since we haven't met, but I'd like to introduce Thomas Falston.
Fieldstone. I changed it sometimes.
Fieldstone. Pleasure to meet you.
All right, yeah, nice to meet you. My name is Thomas Fieldstone, and I've been a resident here 15 years. I own 5 water meters on different properties, and I've attended a few board meetings over the years. I'm a pretty active community activist here and many different things that have happened. I've been on the Joshua Tree Chamber of Commerce for many years. I started out with promoting art tours in our area. And what else? And then also working with the current, we're starting a new business council for downtown to basically support businesses in our area with basically Don Rao had come to our community and asked for the businesses to kind of get started. So now I'm on the board of the new Joshua Tree ABC Business and Community Business and Culture Association. And so downtown businesses are very much, they're dealing with a lot of water issues, and I talk with a lot of the business owners. I know them personally. And so I have a big interest in like the package treatment that's going on. So I've heard a lot about that over the years, and also kept up on water issues statewide and locally. I've read Cadillac Desert. It was a fascinating book, and yeah, just very interested in getting involved. I had a friend when I first came out here, Karen Tracy, who was on the advisory council for many years, and I would hear, I'd talk with her a little bit about what she did on the board, and I've always been, interested in joining this council, but just haven't had the time. Now it seems like a good time to get involved if I can.
Thank you. President Flynn.
Vice President Doolittle.
Just as a caveat at the beginning, I'm good friends with this candidate. I did check with our council to see if I should abstain from the voting, and he says it doesn't apply in this instance. So I just wanted to share that in case anybody wanted to say something catty behind my back. I just wanted you guys to know that I'd already checked with council and it's cool. So I learned some things about you reading your resume. That was interesting, and that you had graduated one time with magna cum laude. That was impressive. So, well, since I asked Cammy the same question, so what is your perception of how the water district is doing in Joshua
I
Tree?
think it's doing well overall. I have my concerns. You answered like a few of them too. I understand now because we're a large area and we
Yeah.
don't have very many ratepayers.
Yeah.
And I understand they laid a lot of pipe probably with the idea of the build out. And I know it costs money to maintain, the pipes and all that. And so I think overall the district is doing a really good job. I think it's like the only like real organization that we have here in Joshua Tree, in terms of like, local control. And, overall the years, despite the detractors, I feel like, I have an overall positive view of what we're doing here in districts.
I would ask you something about if you're, if you're prepared to be prepared, because sometimes you guys have to read long documents and everything, but I know you well, and I know, what a good student you are besides the magna cum laude. So I feel good about that. So I'm not going to ask you that, but I am going to ask you about land use and what do you think the district, how do you think the district is responsible for, voting yay or nay on development? Because essentially what happens is the county, tells us this is happening, something's happening. And really our job is to just say, okay, you can have water. It's a will serve, and we're just supposed to say yes. And there have been some concerns by the board, this board and other boards in the past regarding land development and what makes sense in this area.
Yeah, I think I understand it's the mandate of the district to, to approve all applications regardless of their opinions of them. I would personally feel like that. I think that there should be a lot more developmental control and planning made in here, that this type of sprawl should probably be like, not allowed as much as, to spread the water district further, spread it thinner. I know that there was a time when tanked water or hauled water was stopped, and that was kind of a concern. And I think that was probably one of the ways that it seemed like that they had sort of limited the type of sprawl that was happening in the area. So I don't know. I think that the county has some ideas. I noticed with their last community plan of producing more concentrated areas of housing and that type of thing. And that seems like a more appropriate type of development where things are more concentrated in certain areas than spread out overall. If that answers your question.
That did, thank you. It's a nuanced sort of thing, so I don't know that you could answer it in just one question, one answer. And do you have any opinions, or would you want to be, offering your opinions regarding a wastewater treatment plant downtown? Because I know you're a business person with 5 meters, so I just wanted to see what you thought about that.
Yeah, I don't have any meters in downtown, but I know when working with the business owners, that's a huge concern in terms of like the California increasing their requirements for wastewater treatment, and also our nitrate levels, reaching a point where it's probably, not able to keep putting in more septic systems or larger septic systems for businesses and restaurants in downtown. But yeah, we want to, we'd like to grow the downtown businesses in a very sustainable, reasonable way. So to find out a way to do that, I know Yucca Valley, they probably waited a long time to put their sewer system in there, but it was much needed. And I see that Joshua Tree eventually is going to need that downtown, and I'm hoping that there's scoping going on. I think we talked with the previous director about what was going on. We were told that there was some, they had contracted with somebody to do some scoping, but then that contractor wasn't really producing any results yet. And then they're going to look into new scoping. So I know that the business owners are very much in need of some type of, water treatment, and that the sewer system would eventually be like the ultimate best thing to do for the downtown, instead of putting in package treatment plants at a very high expense for businesses downtown. But and I feel like that's probably holding back a lot of the development that people want for the downtown.
That's all for me. Thank you.
Director Fick.
I don't know how many questions I have. I've known do since what, since 2011 or 10 or something like that. We've been through many battles, Dollar General, JT Solar, number of things. The questions I would have is, when people say they own STRs in Joshua Tree, they immediately get a stain as to their motives. You've been an STR person before 2015.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
Yeah.
Can you describe your 5 STRs to us?
Well, I have 5 meters. I only have 1 STR. So I had 2 STRs. I sold one and then I bought another property like just before that too. But I have my own residence, a house that I'm restoring up 2 long-term rentals and then a short-term rental currently. And I did organize our local vacation rentals association with the idea of advocating for reasonable regulations. We were basically, it was at a time that that the county was forming the sort of the downtown or the ordinance for short-term rentals. And we wanted to make sure that they didn't ask us for like really, unnecessary type of requirements, which they kind of did already. But I basically organized our vacation rentals in our area to advocate for reasonable regulations, to meet with Don Rao as representative for our STRs at that time. But that was, back in, 2017 or something like that. And since then, the Joshua Tree, the influx of investment has really blown up, and I've kind of like taken a step back from representing, vacation rentals as a whole, because a lot of the times I'm more for local, support of local people and small ownerships of vacation rentals. And I feel like the county has really dropped the ball in terms of not limiting the amount of vacation rentals that have come into this area. And so I do not advocate for vacation rentals in general, just, as all out. I have them myself, and I have formed an organization to advocate for reasonable regulations. But I feel like the vacation rentals, I advocated for the county to put some regulations against it. And unfortunately, those were, in terms of numbers, but unfortunately, those were ignored.
Okay, well, I don't think I have too many questions. I see the 2 CAC people that we have here. One is strong on water and one is strong on the community of Joshua Tree. Thomas formed the Joshua Tree Community Connection in 2012.
On Facebook.
On Facebook. I'm the lead contributor by probably 3 or 4 times. I put more in there than what I do on my personal timeline. And so I've explained to the Joshua Tree public what's been going on since I was on the JT Mac. And I see this website, and it's stringently, what's the word for it? Regulated in the sense of who is going to be in Joshua Tree, minimum 6 months business and all that. So it's a very, I wouldn't call it reserved, but a
Vetted, it's kind of vetted, yeah.
Vetted
Audience. Yeah.
group,
Mhm.
which is very good because we don't get too many wackos attacking the water district. But I'm suitably impressed by the fact that you even want to be on the CAC. And I see the 2 additions as very forward and progressive. So that's about it. I don't have any questions.
Director Jarlsberg.
Yeah, I appreciate your interest also. I have a little knowledge of you. I've seen you at meetings, many meetings, and often speaking up like I do. I'm wondering, did you attend the last CAC meeting?
No, I did not.
Okay, was it a conflict or something, or why did you not?
Yeah, it just wasn't on my radar at the time.
Okay.
So yeah, fortunately, yeah,
Have you attended a CAC in the past?
not a CAC.
Okay.
Well, you're here now.
Board meetings I've attended before for years.
Yeah. I am aware of your vacation rental management experience, apparently a number of years. How many years have you been doing that?
Oh, yeah, basically, probably, I moved out here in 2009 and I, bought properties with the intention of doing vacation rentals, but then I also realized that vacation rentals might, displace locals. And so I kind of split my properties between long-term and short-term. And I started my short-term rentals and my long-term rentals around, right, 2011, because I bought several distressed properties at that time. And it took me a couple of years to fix them up and get them rented out. But, yeah.
Okay, well, that kind of leads to my next question. Were you aware of any residents who were evicted before low rent homes were bought and converted to Airbnbs?
I'm sorry,
Were you aware of anybody who was evicted by someone who wanted to buy these low rent fixer uppers?
Yeah, I'm aware that there's several people who were probably evicted during, during investment and people selling their property because prices had gone up and people wanted to sell their properties, and a lot of the new people wanted to buy vacation rentals, and that was the unfortunate result. And I saw that, back when I started out, and I was advocating for, reasonable regulations back when it was a lot of mostly local people. And then, over the last 5 years, unfortunately, I saw a lot of like this outside investment. I'm really not happy with it. I'm very much against it. And I did advocate for the county to put, caps on it like Yucca Valley and 29 Palms had. But unfortunately, that was not, and I've stepped out of sort of vacation rental advocacy because of that, because I didn't want to represent, outside investors. I feel like that's been a detriment to our community as a whole.
I had a feeling that was your opinion.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, do you have an opinion about the current water, Airbnb or vacation rental use of water?
Yeah, I have a feeling, I see a lot of pools being put in, and I don't know if there's any limits, it's private property. I kind of struggle with these ideas, it seems like it's a huge water use, and I feel like there could be some kind of policies put into place maybe to mitigate these types of things. A lot of these, like every Airbnb has, you can spot them from 1 mile away. You see hammocks and, the cold plunges and hot tubs and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, unfortunately, I do see that, these types of amenities are kind of like almost required these days. I have not put them in myself because I don't agree with that type of stuff, or, the use of, filling a 300-gallon tank and then draining it and that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. I would like to see if there is any way that either the water district or the county could somehow, mitigate these types of uses so they don't become, a detriment to our water use here.
I think it's an ongoing discussion, and I'm sure that CAC will be talking about it at some point too. So I appreciate you bringing your experience to it. But I do have also a question about this new business organization. What is your opinion of the Chamber of Commerce?
Well, I think the Chamber of Commerce, it lost, I think it had a lot of history, and I think there was a lot of people that, had a lot of bad feelings toward it, which were detractors of the Joshua Tree Chamber of Commerce previously. And then we struggled for many years with that. Previous, presidents had caused some rifts in the community, I think, in the business community. So when I took it over, we were also struggling with the county defunding us. I think there was some event where they came up with an excuse and then they stopped funding the Chamber of Commerce. And we focused on basically almost 100% of our time was just on fundraising to try to keep our doors open, to pay our rent and insurance and, all those kind of things. And I felt at that time that it was, we either needed to go virtual or I wasn't really interested in staying with it. And then the current board wanted to stay with their, brick and mortar business. And so I feel like that kind of like, since the county wasn't supporting it, they couldn't afford it, the overhead. And I thought it was a good organization, and it was like our only other sort of official interface with the county. But unfortunately, the county was like almost undermining us. They actually gave us more work to do in terms of reporting to them. And they weren't giving us any money in return for supporting local businesses. So this new organization, I think, they kind of are coming as a sort of the non-chamber chamber, but it's pretty much the same thing, but it's going to be in a Joshua Tree kind of style, I guess. But I think just like Don Rouse, basically she did this meeting with the business owners that said, well, you guys better, figure out some way to support yourself and advocate for yourself to work on downtown infrastructure improvements, because that's kind of a big thing that all business owners are either suffering from or, that could use a lot of improvement over. And the county had made it clear that they weren't going to help, us in any large way unless we advocated for ourselves, I guess, at least.
Does this new organization look at water use when they're considering the possibility of new business?
I think they could, you know, with me being connected or, you know, with the water board, if that is a concern, I think they could absolutely do it. I think the main thing is, you know, working on infrastructure and amenities for the amount of tourism that happens downtown and traffic situations and I think development is definitely, you know, and water go hand in hand. It's definitely a huge concern.
Okay, thank you.
Director Short.
Okay, I just want to say, you know, thanks for stepping up to serve the community. I mean, we need more people to do that. And this kind of applies to both applicants here. We've had quorum issues with the CAC recently, meaning we haven't had enough people coming in to actually hold a meeting. We've had two great members here right now that show up, and I just want to make sure that that's something that you can truly commit to, because I know both of you have tight schedules.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't commit fully, and I haven't committed because I have had other, you know, things. And I've tried to, you know, in the last few years, I realized I've kind of overextended myself in terms of volunteer being with the chamber and organized vacation rentals. And I drew back to focus on, you know, my personal business again. And now I'm feeling a little bit more available, and I'm being very selective in terms of like what I want to be involved in. And I think the CAC is something I've always wanted to be into and join, but I feel like now I have time to focus on that and just show up for all.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. That's all for me.
Well, if possibly there's a fairness issue here where we've heaped on you this STR issue.
Yeah.
When it's, you know, you're a capitalist and, you know, you want to feed yourself and family and pay your rent, own your own home or whatever you do. And it's a phenomenon that has occurred, and we're just rolling with it. The significant issue that I've seen with it, talking to our director of administration over there, is when the properties, not so much when they're attended by people, but when they're unattended. And there's a boo-boo in the water system, and there's a giant leak, and there's a huge water bill. And then they come in here and they're reluctant to pay it. It's that kind of thing. It's usually the vacant places that bother me. Some of my neighbors are vacant homes or even occasional homes. The downtown thing, yeah, be a nice thing to be able to have businesses there and then promote them and not have it just being businesses that survive only because of weekend business, that kind of thing. They're paying for that water. And we have it, at least we do now. I can remember when I first came here, there was it might be more than just parking, but parking is an issue here too. You know, you're supposed to do all of this stuff. I did notice too that you have it on the tour. And so you have some idea of what's going on. And this just like up here and down there, this is a learning experience. It's a learning experience in spite of the incredible credentials that our general manager has. This is a learning experience for her every day. You know, it's like, what now kind of a thing maybe. But I don't expect anybody to come here being really knowledgeable about the water business and stuff like that. You come here with your ready to listen, and then based on your life experience and what you hear, you form opinions, and then you may change them. So anyway, you're here now, to quote Gregory Peck. Have to find out where your name is again. Here it is. Saw that, I can't remember his first name.
Thomas Fialsta. Fialsta, I know how to say his last name.
I don't know, it's Thomas.
I know, another Thomas.
Is there a motion to approve Thomas Dahlstrom?
Fialsta, I'll make the motion.
I'll
He's the
second.
Norwegian in me. Those in favor, or do we want to roll call on this? I don't.
President
Good.
Blunt,
Aye, yes.
Vice President Delory,
Yes, with pleasure.
Director Vic,
Yes.
Director Jarlsberg.
Yes.
Director Short.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. That's exciting, actually.
Now, how many people do we have on the CSC now? So means
Our numbers now,
I think we're at 9.
Okay,
that's good.
what's a quorum?
6.
All right, we might actually do it then.
January 2025 check register, Director of Finance, Ann Roman, please.
All right, we have the January 2025 check register. This is a little new, bringing it to the board directly, since we dissolved the finance committee. So we're still trying to figure out exactly what the best approach is, but I thought I would start with just pointing out some of the transactions that I thought were of interest. And then we can take some questions if that works for everyone.
And I just want to tell our guests there's an extra agenda with this information in it over there on the table.
And I hope they will stay.
How many are there, but.
All right.
Sorry, Ann.
No, that's fine. So just to start on page 17 of the packet, I had pointed out in my staff report, the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, and that is a remittance of our sales tax collections for the plant sale, as well as any sales tax that we have to adjust for anything that we purchase. So if we, for example, last year we purchased a building from out of state and they don't tax at the local rate, which is required. And so we then have to adjust that, tax ourselves essentially and remit that to the state. So it's a use tax is what they call it at that point. And so that's that $619. That's what that is. On page 18, we have right in the middle, e-source companies, and that is a validation for our water loss audit. This is a required report that we have to do each year, and it's required to be validated by an independent certified validator. And so that is what that is, $2,700 there. Stop me if you have any questions along the way.
Oh, okay, I thought you said we were gonna talk and then ask questions.
We can do, yeah, we can, let me go. I don't have that many things, so let's do that. Page 19, I have wanted to mention there are 3 missions transactions right at the top, and those are normally there's 2, there's 3 because it relates to 3 payrolls in January. So there were 3 payrolls in January instead of 2. These are employee and employer 457 remittances. And we have on page 20, in the middle there, United Way of the Desert, there was a check that was reissued. Apparently there was a little mix up. They didn't receive the check, and so we voided and reissued that. There are also, I have some details on the credit cards if you would like to hear those. Usually we go over those on the finance committee, so I thought that might be of interest. The very first one on page 20 is mine. And that includes the CSMFO, California Society of Municipal Finance Officers,
That's
annual
what that is.
membership for myself and for Autumn. And it has included, I think it was a $20 Trello Power Up. So Trello is a organizational software that we use internally. And so these are little extra features that you can purchase for the software. So very minimal cost.
Power Up.
Power Up, yeah. Fancy name. Then the next credit card is Dan's, and that included water treatment classes for 2 employees, a CV joint puller, solar panels for the D11 SCADA, safety glasses, wire cutters. That was the majority of that. David has, I'll point out here, there are 2 transactions under David's credit card. One is an erroneous extra invoice that was, it was erroneously recorded and it was voided subsequently. But when the void was done, it was voided in the next month. And so you'll see the void in February.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just a little bit of a mix up there with recording that and voiding it. So there's only one transaction, which is the one with the number US 1224-1. So that included the usual stuff there, climate controlled indoor storage, monthly fee, monthly Adobe subscriptions, medical supplies for the AED defibrillator, and uniforms for the office, and a Canva subscription. Most of that is routine and we see that every month, except for the AED and the uniforms. That's once a year usually.
Which one was that?
That's David's. The second one either one, they're the same amount, but the second one with the payable number US 1224-1.
Oh, okay. That has the uniforms in it. You mean the clothes that you guys ordered, the big box that came in December?
Well, yeah, probably. I'm not sure when we got them. Is that when we got them? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I clearly remember. Nothing for the board, but okay.
I just wanted to make a comment on the offsite storage. I think we talked about whether that was gonna be moved to onsite at some point. I mean, it's still going on. Maybe you could explain what it is for those that haven't heard before.
We have all of our district historical documents in a climate controlled storage rather than being out in the shed where the heat will destroy documents over time. We're working on some solutions, possibly bringing them on site, but that's still TBD. We're working on moving some offices around, but it's still
I did look into the facilities right here across the street.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have any that are climate
Oh.
controlled.
right.
But
We actually
it's
wanted-
in 29? Is that where it is right now?
It
Yeah.
was previously in Palm Springs, if you remember, several years ago. Then this one became available, so we took this one.
Yeah.
It's still a hassle though, because if you want to go through the documents, you got, leave and go do it. So we would prefer them to be here locally, and that's, our goal.
So, sorry.
Just while we're on that subject, that sometimes it's a good idea to have some of your critical stuff off facility.
It absolutely.
Oh,
is.
totally.
So don't
Yeah,
have
you
all
want
your-
that too.
Your eggs in one.
No,
basket.
you don't want that because you get a fire, it all burns up.
Yeah.
No, you want to have redundancy.
Our hazard mitigation guy is, well, as far as I know, he's still out of state. And you have better phone connections during say an earthquake kind of a situation. You have better phone connections to people out of state than you do within the state.
Mm.
So I just thought I'd throw that.
one more credit card, which is Sarah's, and that one included annual drug and alcohol query fee with the US Department of Transportation, DOT, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, HR employee training webinar, and an annual Grammarly subscription. So those are the main comments that I have. I have a few other notes, but I'm happy to take any questions on pages 17 through 1.
I have a few.
Me too.
Shall I go? Okay, so yeah, I have one, I'll wait on one question, but I was wondering on, so I just don't remember what is this Mission Square Retirements, page 19?
It's our 457 plan, which is similar to a 401k. It's
Was
just,
it always called Mission Square Retirement?
no, it used to be called ICMA.
Okay. See, it's so tricky. You
Yeah,
changed the
it's-
names, okay.
About 4 years.
Well, I know, but it's been about 4 years since I looked at a check register. Okay, so on page 20, Oh, sorry, was my phone talking to me? SWRCB, I know that's the State Water Resources Control Board, but what are we paying them when we pay them 18,000 for water system fees for essentially 2 months, looks like?
That should be for, no, that's from July 2024.
24 to 25. Oh, good. Oh, good. That's a year.
Fee.
Okay,
And, you know,
but still, what is it for? I don't know what it's.
We have to pay per connection. Every connection we have,
Oh.
it's a fee.
Oh, so this is like a tax.
Every,
sure how to-
And it's called a fee.
every year, but
Right.
when we fill out our annual electronic annual report for the state, there's a form within the electronic annual report, also called the year, that
Oh.
we fill out to qualify for DAC status, which is disadvantaged community status, which reduces those rates. So that rate, if we were not filling out that form properly and getting that to the state timely, would be about 30,000.
I bet you that's what I was thinking. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, as they can.
Okay, right, yeah, okay. And yeah, and so I wanted to know about, and just at the bottom, it was just curious to me that why we would put drug testing under employee training. What?
Yeah, so that one was,
It's just curious.
designated employee representative, DER training, which is required for employers with DOT regulated employees.
Okay.
Ensuring compliance with federal drug and alcohol testing regulations.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay. And then I just had a question. I'll just kind of let it roll up, but there were several places on here where we noted inventory. So like on page 17, it was like 58,000, and then another place, it was like almost 12,000. And I don't know if this is a place to talk about it, or maybe when we get to the budget, we'll talk about it, but I'm just flagging those two things. Let's talk about it when we get to the review.
Okay, yeah, no, there, I have a few notes on that.
Okay.
There's 66 quarter-inch meters and 51-inch check valves. Those were the two inventory transactions.
Oh, okay.
It's like, so some significant, a significant amount of meters.
Okay.
in That 50
or meter.
I was figuring it was to complete that. That's good that we got it. All right, great. Okay, that was all for me. Thank you.
David, anything?
Nope, not yet.
Karen?
I just wanted to note that we did have some narcotic inspections that went on here. That we paid for. Which I'm sure is useful. And. Oh, the CN on page 17 towards the bottom, CNS Electric. It says final payment. I just wanted to note that it was a final payment. How much did we pay for the,
Well, that was just the electrical,
yeah,
so I don't know,
the booster station?
yeah, the booster station in total.
Well, it said final payment, so I assume there was another.
Just for the electrical, I think.
So it doesn't mean that we're not doing business with CNS Electric. That's just for that project.
Oh, okay, all right. And are there other booster stations being updated?
Yeah, well, we'll be bringing some to the board in the upcoming budget. G booster
Okay.
station is the next one on the list.
Okay. Oh, and I had a question about that use tax remittance for CY, which is calendar year.
Yes, yes, calendar year 2024.
So that's a payment that is a total payment
Yes.
for the year. And I kind of missed what you were talking about it when you were trying to do your initial
Yeah.
report, and I kind of missed what you said about it.
So it's for the plant sales. This one primarily, I think, is for the plant sales, but when we purchase something from, for example, an out-of-state vendor, and they don't charge us the appropriate amount of local sales tax, then we have to cover that. So in a prior year, we purchased a building from Oregon, somewhere in Oregon. And they did not charge us California local sales tax. And so we have to actually calculate that ourselves and remit that.
Wow, I can't believe that.
And that's an annual,
We report it annually.
yeah, report it annually.
Yeah. Because it's
And
so
pay it
small.
annually.
Yeah,
But it sounds like it was a bookkeeping thing too, to figure out what owed.
it is. We have to keep track of that with every payment that we make.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the plant sales
And
probably.
the plant sales.
Okay, um. Let's see. And I think you also mentioned on page 18 in the middle, the E-Source Companies LLC. If you could explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, so that is the annual water loss audit report. It looks like this one was for 2023. We just
finished it. There's always a year, you always are reporting on the calendar year that's behind.
Right, we're always behind with that. So this was the validation portion. So we actually did that in-house, right? But we have to have an external certified validator to comply with the state's requirements.
And essentially make sure that the report is accurate.
Yeah, this
But it's-
is something for the state though,
It's
for
another
California.
unfunded mandate, correct?
All right, and but is this new? I haven't seen this before, so I was curious if
We've
this,
been doing this for almost 4
with
years,
this
I think since
E-Source?
2020. E-Source is the vendor that we've been
Oh,
using.
okay,
For
I just hadn't noticed it.
validation. There's other companies out there, they're all relatively the same in price. We just found that their validator is very knowledgeable, and it's been really a good
the help.
time working with this particular person because she understands this very nuanced reporting in a way that nobody else has demonstrated to us.
And they changed their name a few years ago.
Oh, okay, maybe
They
that.
have a different. I want to say water quality specialist, which is similar to what water quality, water something, but it was water something,
Yeah.
and they changed it to E-Source.
And then also I noticed on page 20 that there were 2 entries for David's card. Is that just a duplicate or were there actually 2 checks?
It's a duplicate, yes, and
Okay.
the void you'll see in February.
Oh, that's the one you were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right,
Confusing, there was a lot.
okay, all right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Director Short.
No questions for me.
Just in passing that under the credit card stuff on page 20. You mentioned solar panels. I think it was under Dave's, thing for David 11 tank.
Dan's, it was for the D11 SCADA.
And I assume that that's just simply some very minor, very small solar panels that are used to power some of the telemetry stuff and all that there. It's not a big,
I can explain, when we transferred the D11 booster station from the old one to the new one, there was a couple of weeks in there where we had to use battery power because we didn't have the power there to keep all the lighting and all the SCADA going. So we installed the solar panel until CNS Electric came up and finished the power for that final payment that you saw.
more.
No, I was just gonna mention the total 279,000 on that report, which is a low
You'll,
month for us.
Yeah.
will, yes, ma'am.
I just, I actually had wanted to make a comment on that, that January was a pretty frugal month.
Yes.
Guys are
No.
as careful as you can be in spending our money.
There's a cycle to this,
Yeah, I understand.
so yeah, it won't be that low every month. I don't anticipate.
But January is when
Okay, is there a motion from the board to approve the January 25 check?
Well, we're gonna go through the pay adjustments report and stuff too, aren't we? Yeah, okay.
I thought you were done.
So, yes, page, quickly, I'll go through page 23, which is the payroll register, and that one includes employee-funded flexible spending account transactions, 64 in that. And there were W-2 processing fees on that register. Then on page 25, we have the utility refund register, 2,082.99. That's refunds of customer deposits that they put on file with us or put on hand with us when they open their account. So when they close that, they get a refund if they don't have a balance that exceeds the deposit that's on hand. And then page 26, 27, and 28, those are the director's stipends for meetings, various meetings that they have attended, meetings that they have and have not taken a second to make a note of their way. So questions on that?
I just have a comment. I know that we started doing these director mentions, and I don't know if that was something that President Flowen discussed with the district and then the district decided to do, or did the district just decide to do this out of an abundance of caution and transparency? But I see, it makes me wonder, I mean, I'm fine with it. And I certainly can, personally, as a board member, defend the spend on me myself, not speaking for anybody else, but I certainly could defend it there as well, actually. But on, it's just, I believe it's a little difficult for ratepayers to discern how much we spend on salaries. And I have seen other budgets where it's a little bit called out better than it is here, and it's very obtuse. You have to go, well, okay, that's that, but that's actually including this and this. And so you can never really see. And then the retort I get back or the response is, well, you can find it online. You know what I mean? That it's reported on, but that's not necessarily easy. And so it's just curious to me that we would, give all this detail regarding what we pay the board, which is a kind of a pittance. And yet we don't see anything for the staff. So anyway, I just want to point that out.
With that comment,
Okay.
Government Code Section 54953, the Brown Act mandates transparency in public meetings, meaning stipend amounts may be disclosed in meeting agendas, minutes, or budgets. And we've been doing this since I started.
Oh, no, I don't remember doing it.
It's been this way since I've been here too.
Well, no, I can go back and look, but okay, I'm saying I don't have a problem with that. What I'm saying is that it's just curious. Because I don't remember it being that called out, and I'm fine with that. I do remember us having one page. We didn't used to have all the other pages on it.
Well, we had
Yeah.
different formats because of our different
Right,
software,
yeah.
which we're changing it.
So, yeah.
It's very possible. Yeah.
So it's just nice to see in the summary that you did for the check register that you mentioned something for payroll. So that's counts on page 16. So you payroll 2,143.29.
Processing costs.
Oh.
The actual
Yeah,
salaries,
yeah.
benefits.
Yeah,
And you're right, it is confusing trying to, when you go through the general ledger, it is confusing trying to isolate salaries because we're very small, we split them among departments. We pull out the compensated leave, so that's in the benefits section.
yeah, it's just like,
So it is, yeah, we have to do a separate.
thank you for admitting that, Ann. I appreciate you admitting it as opposed to stonewalling on that. So thank you, yeah. And so it just seems to me, if we're gonna just like state director stipends, it's just something for us to think about, I think. And again, it's just, because I struggle because ratepayers are constantly coming to me about, particularly during the election, about what people make here. And again, I can defend that now. I wasn't very good at defending it when I first started. So, anyway, I don't want it to feel like it's a secret. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you. Winding up on that a little bit.
Well, I pleaded it, but I didn't do it.
Okay.
I tell people, I'm quite open about what we make whenever it comes up. As recently as this afternoon, I told a woman at the pharmacy, Star Pharmacy, I says, I make $7,000 or $8,000 a year.
That's
for
what we
I do.
make. That's what we
And she
make.
says, Is that all?
Well, that's what a lot of people say, and that's why they don't want to get involved in the board. So that's what I've had people tell me. Yeah, I had Gary Hunt tell me that, so
Yeah, we don't do this.
I know.
Just for scale, the board cost half a percentage, 0.5% of the budget of the Joshua Basin Water District.
You figured that out.
I hope you guys don't think that's too much.
Think that at all.
Good, I'm glad, good. I hope we're bringing some value.
But it's also in the budget too. It shows the what's budgeted for board stipend.
Yeah,
It shows
oh, yeah.
what's budgeted for board
Yeah.
training.
It's fortunately very clear.
And for the newcomers, we had a discussion about this at a board meeting maybe a year ago now, I'm not sure.
Last year.
As to whether or not we would raise the stipend from $173 and change to something higher, and the board voted no. Keep
We
it.
voted to
To
pass it on to another time.
Which is coming up.
Which is not no, yeah. And it was just because it had, when was that first set?
2008.
2008. So just know that the board hasn't had a raise since 2008. And I was the one suggesting this because of the feedback that I've gotten, that people felt like, it wasn't enough. And you can say that it's compares to High Desert Water District, but it doesn't, because they have insurance, the board members do, and we don't get any benefits. So
And
We'll be bringing that back to the board for consideration soon, as we discussed last time, I think in a year's time, which I think is coming up in April
Is it really?
already.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
and
Yeah.
Time flies.
Bighorn Desert View just voted to raise their stipend by 5%.
and 29 Palms just went up to 150.
And as I remember it, it's what it is you can do a maximum of 5% when you establish the new rate. And so being that it's 2008 to that's 16 years, roughly 16 years. And once we establish it, we can't raise it anymore. But if we had the equivalent pay from 173 in 2008, we'd be at 350 per meeting, which
Now
is-
that's more like it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
which is- Yeah, but
Kidding. I think I want to get Director Fick a t-shirt that says, as I remember. Start a lot of sentences like that.
That's for sure.
Well, he just starts a lot of sentences like that.
So are we really done this time?
I think we are.
Okay, I'm not confused.
I'll make a motion to approve the check register.
Second,
I'll second.
General Manager Johnson, roll call, please.
I think this can be it doesn't need to be a roll call, is what I'm trying to say, but I'll be happy to do it. President Bowen.
I'll note that. Aye.
Vice President Cook,
Yes.
Director Fick,
yes,
Director Jarlsberg,
Yes.
Director Short.
Yes.
Motion carried. Second quarter, let me start over. Second fiscal quarter, ending 12/31/24. The financial report. Director of Finance and Roman.
Thank you again. Right, I have a handout for you because I realized upon my third or fourth review of this that I missed a page. However, it's here in summary. So in the at a glance, the information's there. It's just the detail that's missing. And I'll go over it in the PowerPoint that I have as well. So hand that down, please. So that's usually in the packet and I just, too many pages, I missed it somehow. So I will start screen sharing here, hopefully. Let's see if this works. Okay. And we'll kind of go over this. I'll try to go over it at a high level with the exception of the page that was missing, so that we can, talk about that since you didn't have a chance to see that in advance.
Okay.
Okay, so one thing I will mention before we start what's on my slide, something that's not there is the investment interest. Wanted to mention that LAIF interest rates in quarter ending 12/31/24 dropped from 4.71 to 4.62 with an interest of 238,847 received on January 15th, 25. So that falls out of this quarter, but camp investments are going to be in place. You'll see those in the next quarter that we talk about. That'll be all in place. But camp and LAIF, just for the record, are running very close right now in the interest rate since they're coming down. So
The LAIF is a local agency investment fund, and it's operated by, is it the treasurer that does that? The LAIF,
yeah, I think it's the treasurer.
Fiona Ma, I think it is.
Yeah.
But the money that we have, we just don't have it all banked. It's invested through the state, the government. And we leave the investment stuff up to them. There's a committee that they have up there, and they do all this kind of stuff. We don't touch investment money. The second one, camp. Correct me when I'm saying nonsense. Camp is a more of a private investment outfit, and what we did within recent months is we've explored ways to make more interest income, investment income with our public money than.
At the request of the board.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say it was at the request of the board.
Well, that's what those things are
Yeah.
that she's talking about, just so you know.
All right, so I will start going through here, cash balances, and I've got page numbers. And I think I updated it to the amended packet, so we'll see if that's true or not. So cash balances are at 22,284,255, of which 5.483 million is legally restricted. The majority is in LAIF, but as I mentioned earlier, the scheduled transition of funds to camp is currently in progress. So that's about 5.5 million, I think, that was going to be transitioned over to camp. So that should be done by the end of this month. Now, what I have done, so we have all the detail on page 33 for you of the various reserve funds. And I won't talk about all those in detail, but I did want to point out on page 33, there's a chart at the bottom left that I added. And I thought that was of interest because we keep talking about this rolling balance comparison with last year, $4,083,000 of an increase. And we've seen that 4 million-ish number before, and I just wanted to point out that this is a rolling balance that we're looking at. This is a rolling look back period of 12 months. And so if you look at that table, you can kind of see how if you look at the various quarters that are involved there, that 4 million shows up a few times. So no, we're not having 4 million plus 4 million plus 4 million increase. It's just as you look at that snapshot from one quarter in the prior year to this quarter and this year. So I don't know if that's helpful for anyone, but I thought I'd put that format in there. Maybe it'll make a little more sense. Questions on cash balances?
Well, so I would like to say, just for the benefit of some new people here, is that so our reserves, these are our reserve funds, and some of them are set up where we have money that's, we can easily access for certain things. And then some of them are restricted funds. And so that's this 22 million that we have. And we need to have 6 months worth of funds to run the organization if there's a terrible earthquake or, money's not coming in, but we still have to, do things and repair things and things like that. So that's one reason why we have that amount of money there. And then some of, as you can see, these different reserves, some's meter replacement, building to build a new thing, these studies and reports that we have to do, some of them, they're mandates from the state. And so they're very expensive. This was a great business to get in. If you guys decide to, start your own business, I would recommend that business. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. But this thing about rolling, that's new. I've heard you say the word rolling, but down here where it says comparison with last quarter, comparison with last year, comparison, spending change with last year, but comparison with last year, it says rolling 12 months. So, but we have a $4 million increase from last year, don't we?
From last year, correct.
So why does it say rolling 12 months right there?
Rolling 12 months, if you look at the table on the right, the right column, that is the increase from quarter to quarter. And then if you look at in the color, do you have color?
Yeah.
You do.
Uh-huh.
Okay, good.
The mustard, it's mustard.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you look there in that orangey mustard color, that is, those 4 quarters, looking back to 12/31/23, you actually can see that 4,083,000 over those 4 quarters. But if you look at the quarters 9/30/24 to 9/30/23, that 4,058,000 is still close to, because there, it's, it's not happening, it's not an increase that's happening every year. It's an increase that's happening quarter by quarter, and it depends on what period of time you're looking at. So I know it's a little confusing, but I wanted to just point out
Got that?
that these are rolling.
And me neither. Tom doesn't have it.
So-
And he has a book on Gatsby. You think he'd get it, so.
So just like we look at the consumption history on a rolling 12-month basis for comparison, we're always looking back 12 months from the reporting point in time. And if we look at the prior quarter and look back 12 months, we also see a 4 million, but it's much the same 4 million. There's a slight difference in there, but much of it is the same. So
I don't know, what if it's like a checkbook, you know what I mean? What if it's my bank account? And, this year I have $10,000 in it.
Yeah.
And then next year, all of a sudden I have $13,000 in it, right?
Yeah.
Let's say on March 31st and on March 31st of 2026, I have $13,000. That's a $3,000 increase. That's not anything to do with rolling. So where do we see that point in time and that certain amount? It's not rolling.
If you looked between, okay, so so you have to have some period of time that you're looking back.
So that year,
we look
March
at-
31st, 2024, March 31st, 2025, for example.
A different number if you were looking at January to January
Right.
instead.
Okay.
Right?
Oh.
Between there, the increase in activity or the increase in your balance
Right.
between January and January, that would be a different number. But
And
if
it
you
would
have
be
a
February to
large-
February, right?
But if you had a large income, large revenue that came in between January and January, let's say it came in December, that's still included in your March to March period of time. So you're going to see that increase in the revenue or decrease in expenses in that subsequent comparison period as well. So, if it's in December, it falls into multiple look back or rolling 12-month periods. Does that make sense to you, Sarah? Or
This one is challenging for me
It is challenging.
too, but I'm thinking of it maybe, oftentimes we're looking back at a fiscal year, we're looking back at a calendar year.
Yeah.
And this is a look back at the 12-month period.
it is?
This is the end of the calendar year.
It
This
is.
looking back of all of 2024.
Right.
And if we were looking at it in September last year, we would be looking at from September to the previous September.
Yes,
So it's
exactly.
a different time frame versus where we generally look at fiscal year and calendar year. This is giving you a more up-to-date look because it's just.
It does. Well, and it's what we've always been looking at. This is the same. I haven't changed.
Yeah,
anything
yeah, I know.
As far as what we're looking at, I'm just trying to explain better, which I'm not doing a good job at.
You always do a great job.
But the comparisons, we always look at the comparison with the last quarter and the comparison with the prior year. And the spending change within that 12 months was almost $2 million. So of a decrease, which is why we're seeing the cash increase so rapidly, because we decreased our spending so
Because of,
much
salaries and.
in that period of time. But see, the periods that you're looking at, it's going to be impacted by where the, bulk, I should say, of the activity falls. So if it falls within that rolling 12-month period, you're going to see it potentially multiple times if you're looking at different periods. So I'll think about how to maybe explain that better.
Well, but it just makes me think, so then the only thing that would be a true comparison would be the audited uh,
Well, you're still looking at
reports.
that one period of time compared to another period of time.
Right, but it does have a cutoff, right? I mean, it does have a cutoff.
Yeah, and this does too. It's just, what we're saying is when we look at that cutoff, today we're looking at the cutoff of 12/31/24 compared to 23.
Yeah.
Last time we looked at the cutoff of 9/30/24 to 9/30/23. And that 4 million, though, it really showed up in both of those 12-month periods because of where that activity was concentrated. So,
That's where it starts over. There's not a place where it
Yeah.
stops.
Oh, yeah,
Starts
that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
continues.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
It's-
makes me think I've never had a bead on this, you know what I mean? So,
I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah.
But, looking back to last year, we're 4 million ahead of where we were in cash balances. And again, that's really driven by that, heavily by that 2 million in spending decrease. And then we had some increase in our revenues from property taxes and capacity charges and things like that. So,
do we think then that, because I am gonna ask something about the capital spending and stuff, but do we think then we're gonna catch up with some of this spending, General Manager Johnson?
Not for capital
Okay,
replacement this fiscal year.
okay, so not this fiscal year. So not by July, not by the beginning of July?
No.
Okay, and maybe you'll address some of that in your report. I was just curious about what's happening with hiring. So, because I think that's a factor. Okay, all from me, thank you.
No, your first bullet right here on page 29, both revenues and expenses are generally not incurred evenly throughout the year. Some costs may be incurred early on and others near the end of the year. Does that sort of apply here?
yeah, absolutely. It all depends on where the revenues fall and where the expenses fall. So,
Well, if I'm saving up money in my checking account all the way up until January of 2025, say, it may appear to be a very substantial number, but then 2 weeks later, I'm paying my CPA for my income tax for that preceding year, and I'm also paying the tax, which then is going to drop the money. So if I could, I could feel fairly comfortable during the time before I paid all those bills, thinking I got a lot of money, but then here comes a hit for that preceding year.
right.
Does that apply to kind of?
Well, it does, and it just depends on what period of time you look at that
Yeah.
balance and look back to, how far you look back.
Yeah, but
So, if you're looking today, that increase is gonna look different than if you're looking at the balance from, 3 months ago
yeah.
and look back 12 months from there.
But
So-
after I read this, I kind of thought up this way to think about it. It's like saying you can't judge the length of a train just by looking at the locomotive.
That's exactly what it's like saying.
It's something.
Well, so just one question, so but the net operating revenue, my new favorite number,
Yeah.
that's not rolling, right?
The net,
Operating.
from the audit.
Right, well, yeah,
that's Annual, yeah.
right. So that actually is a number that's not impacted by,
That's always looking
the
at
rolling, right? That's actually the number we can depend on.
That's the fiscal year.
Right,
stuff.
okay, all right, thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll try to work on something maybe a little more helpful for this, so. All right, I'll move on, unless there are other questions on this page.
Our fault.
All right, so moving on to cash flow. So this is the page that I handed out to you. Cash flow for the second quarter ended 12/31. And the summary is on your at a glance sheets, but this is the detail. If you're interested in that, you can see most of the revenues came in from, this is on page, it would have been between 29 and 30, but it's the peak.
Oh, it's this loose fee. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm calling it 29, but so we started with 20,644,285. We took in $4,158,125 in this quarter, mostly from water bill payments and property tax assessments. So this was the quarter where the bulk of the first property tax payments came in. So the bulk of the property tax payments in this quarter. We also had meter installation and capacity fees, a much lower amount, having sold 8 new meters or having had 8 new connections,
New accounts.
new connections, I guess, new connections. I'm trying to change that terminology. And 5 meter upgrades. We had life interest there. HDMC wastewater treatment plant reimbursement, which is just a pass-through. We're always billing that when we were paying those invoices for High Desert Medical Center wastewater treatment plant, and then where they're reimbursing us for those costs. We have consumer and project deposits, special services. So those are things like penalties, fire flows, will serves. Liens and bad debt, we did collect a little bit there, 5,000, a little over 5,000. We had some United Way activity. And the credit card rebate, small amount, but something we didn't have before, so $256 there. Then in our use of funds, so this is our expenses, we incurred $2.5 million in expenses coming from inventory purchased. And mostly in this quarter, there was no debt service. Operations, salary and benefits was the largest component. And capital costs, again, because we haven't had quite as much activity in that area. Capital costs at $157,125, broken out among the D11 booster upgrade, the 210 John Deere skip loader, well 14 injection and Myox, a little bit of work there, E21 reservoir upgrade. And the windbreaks here at the office, those are new. And Belmont Design and Survey had a little bit of activity. So in total there, we started with 20,644,000. We ended up with an increase of 1.6 million, and our total balance at the end of the quarter was 22,284,000. Any questions on that cash flow?
Hearing none.
Okay, all right. So property taxes and assessments, this is in on page 35 of your packet. Property taxes, property taxes and assessments, I should say, collected for 1.479 million of 2.43 million billed. Development activity, I mentioned earlier for the quarter, 8 new connections and 5 upgrades with a revenue of 204,898. Sorry, I just skipped right over to a different page, didn't I? All right, sorry, let me back up to page 35 for the property taxes and assessments. I have the detail for you there on page 35 if you have any questions about that, but the overview is that we're collected at 61% as of 12/31/24. Again, because those the way those property taxes and assessments come in, it's when folks are paying their property taxes. That's all billed on the tax roll. So when those property tax payments are due, and then, you know, customers, the parcel owners pay the property taxes, and then we get those payments a few weeks later. So that happens in December and it happens in April. So a lot of activity there with that. Questions on page 35 for the property taxes and assessments?
I have a question. So it says that property tax revenues changed from last year by 45%. Does that mean an increase of 45%?
Yes, if it were negative, it would be a decrease, but it's, yeah, 45% is an increase.
Well, then what does
322,000.
the next line mean? Total property tax and assessment revenues changed from last year by 12%. What is that?
So that is the property taxes and assessment revenues. The assessment revenues are the CMM and the standby in addition to the property taxes. So when we add those together with the property taxes.
Oh, okay. Well, so is property tax revenues of an increase of 45%? Is that I don't remember that it.
Substantial.
Right.
Yes,
So this
quite
is,
substantial.
did you call that out? I mean.
No, I didn't mention that, but I did. I think we've talked a little bit about how the property taxes have gone up and we don't know what they're gonna do next year. So when we're working on our budget, I'm budgeting a little bit lower for those, but we're over $1 million now in property taxes that we receive from the county. So up from 723,000 last year. That's quite a jump, and it's revenue that, as we talked about in the last meeting, although we did factor it into our rate study to offset the rate levels, we do have more leniency with that property tax revenue to do other things with, like the United Way.
Yes.
Program that we talked about.
Right.
So it's good that we have a nice, healthy balance there coming in from property taxes. So CMM is on this page too, and we can see there that the prior collections are going up from compared with the prior year. And so that means people are catching up with their property taxes, and maybe that indicates some turnover in properties. Standby assessments also up 18% in the prior year. So those are notable changes because they generally can indicate that the properties are being sold, and those property taxes where all these are billed have to be caught up in order for that to happen. So it's a very, speculative, I guess, indication of what may be happening in the real estate market.
Just for Thomas, CMM is the Copper Mountain Mesa, which is way up in the northeast part. They join the district separately. And so only those people benefit from that addition there. And so only those folks up there pay on is it a bond up there or is it just a loan? It's a bond, isn't it?
It's CMM is a bond.
Only those folks up there that benefit from the water, which is everybody, are paying for it. And the rest of the district does not pay on the bond. It's only the property owners.
For their infrastructure, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Sometimes I need help. Just to fill you in a little.
Rarely.
Thank you.
All right. So page 31, we have some.
31? We're on 35.
We were on 35, going back.
Oh, okay.
So in the summary here, the financials at a glance.
Okay.
We have the development charges, so I didn't I started to talk about this, but again, 8 new connections in the quarter and 5 upgrades, and in the year to date, so the fiscal year to date, 12 new connections with 8 in the wastewater area. This is in the bottom right, in that development charges box. And we did 6 upgrades in the year to date so far, 363,584 in revenues related to development charges. I don't have a specific detailed report on that. We never have. But if you have any questions, let me know. I'll keep moving along. On page 36, we have now our budget adjustments, and there's nothing there to draw your attention to because we are going through the budget process right now. And so we'll be bringing that to you for some workshops coming up. So nothing happening in the quarter there. And page 34, we have, I'm sorry if I'm skipping around. I'm
Just making sure we're awake, right?
I see my slide doesn't exactly follow in order, so.
Yeah.
But on page 34, we have our accounts receivable. Sorry, I can't even find my own page. All right. So on page 34, we have our accounts receivable what are we calling this, snapshot, I guess. And so this compares our current year 12/31/24 accounts receivable to the prior year. And very similar, has gone up just slightly. The total has gone up slightly, which is aligned with any rate increases that occur during those periods of time that are included there. This also, I haven't mentioned this before, and I thought it might be of interest. This total AR balance actually still includes the bad debt. Remember, we had the large bad debt write-off last year. So we write it off, but we actually leave it on the books because we still collect it for the 4 years that we're allowed to collect. And so it's still included in these totals. That was 104,000. And so that's part of this as well.
What was
The
104,000?
bad debt from last year that
Where's,
in the summer. So it's included in that total balance. So under AR balances. That
oh,
first
the total?
Total.
104,000.
Yeah.
Because
And
it says, okay, because, okay, all right.
but it's in if you look at the 120 days, if you see how that has gone up also, the bottom number in those top two boxes, the 549,498 versus the 424,730, that's the 128 bucket, and sorry, 120 day bucket, 120 days or older. And that's where the bad debt lives. And that's why it went up, even though we're doing cutoffs now. So that older AR balance should be not going up. Generally, it should be the same or coming down because we're doing cutoffs now, whereas a lot of this prior time we were not doing cutoffs. And so because of the fact that the bad debt is still included in there, we see it jump up from 23 to 24. So just if that stands out to you. We have the percentages, the aging percentages. Oh, and I should mention the projection for bad debt is 55,000 for this year. Lower, but not as low as we might hope, but that may be our new normal. So aging percentages there, and that's just, reflects the percentages of the AR balances above. And then we have the AR statistics, which include the total amount of the bills issued in this quarter. So the dollar amount of the bills issued, 2,008,274 bills issued, dollars in bills issued in the quarter ended 12/31/24 versus in the prior year, 1.759 million. And the number of bills issued increased from 17,136 to 17,328. Payment plan balances has come down a little bit, so that's good, from 71,000 to 58. That means more people are paying in, real time, I guess. The late charges applied, we talked about late charges a little bit, that came up, how much do we?
I've requested it, so I'm so happy to see this here, yeah.
So charges applied, that came down a little bit from last year. And you can see the numbers, so that in dollars, it came down a few thousand. In number and quantity, it came down 30 some points, accounts, I should say. And in the middle there in the bottom, days bills outstanding, that's a turnover ratio. And so it's a good thing. It's coming down from 56 days to 54 days that we're collecting bills. And so that's good. Lien receivable balance, that's included also in these numbers, 128,650, down slightly from the prior year at 129,000. So nothing really crazy going on there. Looking at these.
Yeah, I mean, because this is kind of the first, oh, sorry, Anne, I'm sorry to step on you. I mean, to me, again, I forget things, but it seems to me like this is the first time I've seen this data.
We had this
have we?
probably for
a while back.
a few quarters at least.
Okay, really? The late charges and the payment plans balance and everything?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
This colorful one I've had in there. for,
Okay, well,
42, 3.
okay, because that was one of the things I was asking was how much the district makes on late charges. So I realize it's not a one for one, that we're not just making 41K purely, because there's other costs, there are costs. But yeah, it's kind of this payment plans balance. This makes me sad to see this, again, and it's related to how the ratepayers are doing out there. And I just stopped at the post office and happened to run into a ratepayer. And he again encouraged the district, to please send out email reminders to people. And now Spectrum does this. I know we're not Spectrum, and SCE does this, and I know we're not SCE. But I would just say that the district needs to exhaust some mechanisms for contacting people, and I know you guys have that in the back of your mind, but to help, get these late charges down and these payment plans. And just speaking personally, when SCE says, oh, your bill's due in 4 days and you still haven't paid it, I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? I get an email, and so then I go and pay it. And so not to apply my experience to everybody else, but.
Well, currently, sorry,
Oh, go ahead. I'll got you.
if they're enrolled on Paymentus to pay their bill, which many of our customers are at this point, they can set up a proactive payment where they'll receive a notification prior to the payment if they set up a schedule with Paymentus. So there is a mechanism like that within Paymentus.
But not just for your regular
We
bill.
don't have that. No, we actually don't have at this point, information about mobile phone numbers so that we could text.
Oh, I'm just saying an email.
An email.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that.
It's reliable. Contact.
People raising their hand.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what notification process customers get?
Sure, yeah, we send the bills out, you'll see on
Yeah.
the check register that we pay for those. Once we do see that, we actually start reviewing customers that have usage of 20 units or more during the summer and 10 units or more during the winter. We have a call system. We do reach out, but like I said, the contact information isn't always reliable. That's one of the things that we're trying to get a hold of. So we do on the bill message, make sure that your contact information is up to date. So in case there's an emergency, which is also true, but that also helps update our system so that we can get that information out to them. But in email, we can definitely
Look into that for sure. So proactively is what you're talking about instead of reactively, I imagine, is what I'm gathering from you, because after the bill is not paid, then we have a whole notification.
Yeah, and y'all
process.
went, yeah.
Yeah, and we do have.
Where it goes to collections and all that,
Customers have told us that they wait to get the late tag as a reminder to come in and pay their
We
bill.
get told.
I believe that.
Pretty regularly.
That's-
We don't want them to do that because it's more
No.
expensive. By that time, they've received multiple phone calls, they've received the late
Oh,
notice, they've
right.
received a warning tag and then a final. So it's quite a bit. And I wanted to chime in on one thing that Ann had said a little bit earlier about the bad debt. So if you remember, we had the moratorium on shut-offs for a period of time.
Yeah.
And then it took us about 8 months after that to get on track to begin our cutoff process, because in 2020, we had a new law that came in place, which was SB 998, which gave customers, instead of 1 month for being cut off, it gave them 2 months.
Right.
And when COVID hit, we began to implement that process, but then it got wiped out because there was a moratorium on cutoffs altogether. So we had to revamp that process, and we had some new staffing at that time. And of course, COVID has made everything 100 times more challenging. But what we're seeing is this bad debt prior to 2020 ran around 30,000 a year. Now we're seeing this 55 number. And Ann had mentioned that might be our new normal. And that's because SB 9998 has some unintended consequences, like all legislation usually does. And now a customer's account is really hard to get caught up because it's not just 1 month of getting caught up on, it's 2 months plus all the late fees. So that's why we're seeing that number tick up is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point that
Plus the
out.
current, what they're
Plus the
paying currently,
Yeah, so it's.
their water.
it's detrimental.
No, that's why it makes me sad.
Yes,
Makes me sad.
Customer used to have to get caught up on $100.
Yeah.
That was a lot more doable than now it's 200.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just an example, but it's really challenging. It's double than what it was before and it's a detriment often.
Well, the bill goes out. How soon does it go out before it's due?
20 days.
Yeah, it's,
I mean, to me, the bill, you get the bill and you get time to pay your bill. That's your time.
But that's you.
But that's what, doesn't everybody get a bill?
No, what I'm saying is some people are, you know,
That's your, yes.
that's your method, but I'm saying other people, that doesn't work. Some of them can be out of town for a month. That's the problem. You know what I mean? So they're working in Big Bear. And so they don't get the bill. And I was saying, well, put it on auto pay. I don't want to put it on auto pay because I could have a leak and then I can't get my money back. I can't claw my money back from the district. So that, you know, there are other issues.
Yeah, they're.
But the majority of people that, the customers or ratepayers get a bill ahead of when they're due.
All the customers.
I mean,
we have an.
Yeah, whether or not they pick it up out of their mailbox.
That's a
to
different
get it.
story.
So what percentage of people, you said there are a lot of people on these payment plans, like what, do we know?
I don't know the number. of
Okay,
quantity of
something just maybe in the future. Sometime in the future, I'd just be curious about that number. It's all kind of rolled up into this rolling conversation that we've been having regarding, you know, our disadvantaged community and assisting people.
You made a comment not too long ago that the payment plan thing has an issue in that a person not only has to make that payment plan over an overdue bill, but they also have to pay their current bill at the same time. That kind of makes it hard for them to. We try and do what we can to ease some of these shocks with the lower income people by doing what we can, but there's limits in how we can spend public money to support some people with the money that is paid by other people. That's why we do this United Way thing with property tax money. Is that where that's money that we're allowed to allocate for such a thing. And we don't even deal with other than funded. United Way takes care of that. On this bad debt thing, are we doing liens on
Yeah, so
any of those?
we are, where we can, we're still filing liens. I've actually also been in contact with our legal counsel. We're talking about an option that we were advised in the past was not an option because of our locked basic fees, but potentially putting those delinquent charges on the property tax roll. And we're also looking at a collection agency. There's actually, David's been working on an RFP for that, so that's in the works as well.
So when you made that little aside comment about how even though we write this off, we still pursue some of these things so that when the property changes hands, it can't be accomplished until that water bill or water bills are paid. So we do recover some of this money eventually, but it can be years.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, a lien will only be paid once the property turns over. If there's a sale and a purchase, that's when the liens are enforced. And so that can be many years down the road. Liens are good for 10 years and then they have to be renewed. So I mean, if there's no activity with the property, then we can have a lien in place and, you know, it could be many years before we recoup anything on that lien, but we're securing at least to some extent that debt. So the tax roll would be more immediate. However, you know, more administration with that and more, you know, it's a little bit from a standpoint of the seriousness of putting something like that on a property tax roll, because you cannot short pay your property taxes. And so, you know, if a $200 delinquent water charge is put on your property tax roll and you can't pay your property taxes in full, then, you know, your property is potentially subject to tax sale at some point. And so, there's a potential dilemma with that as well, if we go down that road, and we'll talk about that once we're more prepared with information. I've been doing some research also with other districts and what they're doing in that area. But I think, there's the potential that we could end up with some serious customer complaints going down that road as well, because, it could endanger their property. So now they don't just have a high bill with us, their property is actually subject to tax sale at some point, after 5 years of not paying their property taxes. So, consequences with any method, I guess, what I'm saying.
Thank you.
I just, a comment along this line is I just want to remind people that it's not just low income people that are not paying their bill. It could be somebody who doesn't pay attention to their bills, no matter what their income is. And I think low income people probably are a little more diligent about paying their bill because they don't have the money, so they have to pay attention. And I think that's the situation I'm in.
No, there are wealthy people on these payment
Yes,
plans.
exactly.
Wealthy
That's
people
what
that I know.
President Sloan said something about low income people, but it's not just them, I don't think so.
Oh, today I couldn't find my bills
Yeah.
today. So, yeah, I'm aware.
I have a question on the AR aging percentage. For 23, it's at 36% of the red zone, and
What page?
on page 34,
Okay.
the big colorful one.
These pie charts.
On the right side,
And so it's gone from 36 to 42%, which is 6% increase.
Oh, pie, the pie thing, yeah.
So this is and it says 120 days plus. That means we have 42% of our ratepayers are paying later than 120 days after the bill.
Yeah, so that's
Whoa.
because of the bad debt that's included in that 120-day bucket. That large bad debt write-off, that 104,000 that we wrote off last year, that's still included in there. But yeah, essentially what it's saying is that 40% are current, 10% are 30 days behind, 5%, I think that is, hard to see, 60 days behind, and 4% 90 days behind, and then 42% are in that 120 days. They're that far behind.
I personally haven't gotten a late fee in years and years, but my question is it, I think it was 10%, or what is the late fee charge on a bill?
Yeah, the initial is 10% and then 0.5% in subsequent months.
You mean for that one bill?
Yes.
Right, okay. But the next, if they're late on March, that's how it is. But if they're late on May, it's 10% again.
Yes, and they get one free penalty a year, and that's per SB 998 as well. So every year around the same time, but it depends on, it's a rolling free penalty. So it depends on exactly where that falls, but once a year they do get a free penalty, so they don't have to pay that penalty at least once. And we also do, I don't know if it's right to advertise this, but we do also offer courtesy reversals of the penalties depending on circumstances periodically. So
just a request when this comes up again and we discuss the liens and everything, and you talk about putting the lien on the tax rolls, and you were mentioning that, there's going to be an administrative headache or, more work. See if you can quantify that. Oh, Sarah's gone, but so check with her, obviously, but I would be curious to see if that could be quantified, because, just rather than generally saying it, really, what are we talking about if we're writing off $104,000?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we have to hire somebody part-time to work on this, so that's what I would try to understand.
yeah, I think we'll bring a full report once we're ready. We'll bring that to the board. This is a process that would have to go to the board each year to create a resolution so that those charges can be put on the tax rolls.
Oh, okay.
So, administratively, there is a heavier burden than the liens, which we can do in-house. But a more immediate payoff. So, trade-offs. So we'll look at that when we bring that report. Shall we move on?
Yes.
Okay. So now operating budget,
Now back to page 17.
I'm sorry, and I'm really all over the place because I forgot to reprint my packet. So I'm cross-referencing with this
Okay,
Lisa thankfully left me.
we don't know yet.
All right, so on page 37, we have the operating board report summary. And this is going to highlight our total revenues and our expenses, showing us that our total revenues are at 75% of or $8,095,000 of a $10,816,000 budget. And that's because we are, so our total revenues include unbudgeted revenues like capacity charges and property taxes that actually came in higher than what was budgeted. So our revenues are ahead at 75%. We're looking at 50% of the year at this point in time. And our expenses, we are again 50% of the year, and we're running at 45% at half the year. So that is $4,103,000 spent of $9,206,000 budget. And here's that rolling 12-month again. Sorry about that. Spending is about 2 million below a year prior. So the rolling 12-month spending about 2 million below. But let's look at the by department expenses. So the production department is sitting at right about 53% as of December 31st. Distribution was at 33%. Customer service at 37%. Administration at 38%. Finance at 38% as well. Human resources at 45%. Bonds, loans, and standbys. This department is high at 87%, but that's because most of the costs occur early in the year. That'll level off as the year goes on. We have reports, studies, and plans with very little activity. We're at 4% in as of 12/31. Capital improvement, CIRP, that's at 64%. That's going to be leveling off, but that's just based on some activity that was already in place. HDMC treatment plant, so 39%. This is the one that we are reimbursed for 100% by the High Desert Medical Center. And benefits were at 35%, field allocated department at 29%, and office allocated at 33%. And in total, 45% there. So we're actually running below the 50% mark that we're at in the year. So tracking well. There are, of course, accounts, and I could go over some of those, but there are some accounts that are running high and some accounts that are running really low, so it levels off a little bit. But I did want to mention that the regular check register, so if we look at the comparison on the bottom of page 37, you can see how that varies, how that fluctuates from month to month, with the high, I think, being 1,027,000 and the low 245,000, I think. So an average of 479,000 and a total in this rolling 12-month period again, sorry, of 5,759,000. And that's compared to 7,706,000 if we look back a year. So again, there's that $2 million reduction in spending that we're seeing. If we look at the detail pages, 38, starting on page 38, I have a few points that I'll mention, but this is our general ledger. I know we talked about looking at the general ledger. So these are our general ledger accounts, and look at these for the revenues and expense accounts every quarter. Of course, you don't have all the finer detail here, but you have the balances for each account, including the salary accounts, which are at the top of each department. However, as we talked about earlier, the salaries are don't directly correlate to each position because positions are split. Some are split 3 ways. And then also compensated leave, so like vacation and sick time. But let me call out, just for example, water recharge. I think that was one that was on my list. Yeah, it's showing at 98%. Well, we've already incurred most of the cost on that particular. So under program 1 on page 38.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that 98.10%. That's, it looks high if you just scan down the page, but it's because the cost has already been incurred early in the year. And there won't be much activity after this.
And just for those in the room that don't know, so that's the water that we buy from the Mojave Water Agency and pipe down here on the Morongo pipeline and recharge our aquifers with,
Thank you.
north of 62 on the way that way towards 21.
So we have on page 39, things I was gonna point out, the review service for program 3. Running a little bit high compared to 50% of the year. That's always an account that we have to do some work with at the end of the fiscal year because those costs tend to get a little crossover between where they belong. Then we have, let's see, our membership dues and subscriptions in the middle of program 4, kind of in the middle of the page. It's showing at 85.92%. And again, there, we're incurring a lot of costs at the beginning of the year. So that's why you see that running high.
At the beginning of the fiscal year.
At the beginning of the fiscal.
Yeah, because it's
This is all
December,
based on-
so just, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Labor and legal costs were a little more than anticipated this year. If we
Wow, they sure were.
page 40, we have a bond
6%.
that whole department basically. Those expenses are incurred early in the year, so you'll see it's at 87% already. In reports, studies and plans, we're making an adjustment to the strategic plan. That was just a timing issue between 23 and 24. But be included in the budget that will be forthcoming.
Right, so that's why it says 200% is because it's
Right,
split over a couple of years?
right, and the split's just not correct.
Okay,
so,
all right, okay.
yes, that'll be.
I wondered about that, so thank you.
Yeah. And let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, okay, so at the very bottom section, program 52, we have one account running at 62%. And I looked at that one and there was some substantial gas pump repairs included in that account, 5,400. So that's quite a big chunk out of that budget for this year, something unanticipated.
What's a gas pump? Like
Our gas pumps that we have over at the shop.
for our gas, for the gas, okay.
Yeah, for the fleet.
I thought it was
vehicles.
something else, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and there was an issue with those. And some of them you'll see also may be running really low. And sometimes those, that's an indicator that the account has sort of been forgotten. Maybe it's not being utilized like it should have been. People tend to revert back to the accounts they used to use. If it was a new account, maybe they forgot we set up a new account. And so sometimes you'll see low percentages in there. And sometimes it's meaningful and sometimes it just means that the costs have been coded somewhere else. And so, we have to work through that, but.
And sometimes it's because the bill doesn't come for till closer to fiscal year end.
That's true too. We always have to solicit any outstanding bills at the end of the fiscal year. So sometimes there's a delay in receiving invoices and paying invoices for that reason. So, another reason why the costs aren't necessarily equally spread throughout the year. So any questions on those detail pages of the board reports?
Yeah, I got a question. On page 38, what's right-of-way access?
The question that comes up often, and it's just a funny.
Oh, yeah.
We have a couple of our reservoir tanks that are located on property that we have to access through a right of way that
Okay.
is owned by
BLM.
BLM, and we have to pay pay to play.
Yeah.
Good way to put it. Yeah.
Good call.
And we have investigated whether or not we could get that right away through private property, right?
Yeah, in
So
some of those areas, there's no other way.
Okay.
It's a great question and something that always needs to be looked at if there's a
Yeah.
better way.
Yeah, yeah. We'll buy, really hefty drones in the future and fly everybody over it, yeah.
Interesting things in the past that we, wonder about, there's we have a couple properties that are. Well, one of our well sites is on a sliver of property that it looks like it belonged to a person's 2.5 acres and we just purchased a sliver. Why? I'm not sure. It doesn't have, the history there and it maybe was less expensive to do and the footprint was small, but it doesn't provide for future planning. If you have to do treatment there, where do you put it?
All right,
So,
yeah.
some interesting things. But remember, we're a district that was put together from 5 districts.
That's right.
And when you put that together, you're gonna get a lot of different nuances.
And right away is paid first part of the fiscal year,
It's paid early in.
if it's 100% or a little bit over, but.
Exactly. All right, well, I will move on then to one of our favorite topics, consumption. And this brings us to page 43. So consumption is up 5.59% from the prior year and up 0.75% from 2 years prior. Average consumption revenues per unit increased 13.25% from prior year. And if we look back 2 years, 25.65%. In our ranking of top 10 consumption customers using water, we have many of the same ratepayers, customers that we see here frequently, with including High Desert Medical Center at the top of the list, some of the apartments and the JT Parks and Recreation, Morongo Unified School District, and Otter Camp popped back onto the list this time. Yeah, so that's interesting. And we have an individual here too that is a regular high user. When I looked at their account, they're pretty consistently a high user.
So I have a question about that. Couple questions. So that's 629 units?
In the
Units
in the quarter.
in the quarter. And so in gallons, that's 400 and something thousand gallons?
700
A lot.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what yeah, and so does that person get a little bit more notification than a phone call? And it just made me think, I wonder if we, as a board, it seems like governance, we would want to have some policies in place, or a better understanding of these policies of, what happens with somebody like this, and understanding. And is it okay? Everybody can just buy as much water as they want. And you know what I mean? I mean, that this is more than, auto camp, you guys. This is more than the hospital.
Yeah.
Well, it's not more than the hospital,
Well,
but still.
Puts water budgets in place. I think that is the case.
Yeah, okay. Well, unless we have a policy ourselves, right?
I
No?
think we can.
Okay.
I think that might be a legal question, but
Answer that question. It's a good question.
I'm sorry, it cut out, the audio cut out a little bit during that because people were talking over each other.
Does the board have the ability to put in water budgets for individual users? You may not be able to answer that question, but.
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely have to follow up because I'll have to do some research with Jeff on that one.
Okay,
I
thank
mean,
you.
we're supposed to be reducing our water usage per individual. Like that's state mandate. How else are we supposed to do that then?
Yeah, I think that will come in the upcoming urban water management plan and water shortage contingency plan. I think that's where the leeway is going to lie. And so that we can get prepared for those upcoming
Yeah.
reductions.
And then how do we do it? We didn't go unlock their meter, right? That's the other thing is how is it done, right?
How is it done? It's a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
question. There's so much to consider there. for sure.
I'm curious if this is an actual one person or is it one person that owns property? There's more people using water.
We don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know
We
what
can find
is
out.
happening at the property. But what I was able to determine is that they regularly are a high user.
Yes,
Not, they're paying their bill and
Right.
hasn't been an issue, but I'm not sure what activity is occurring there or how many people are involved in that. So we have to
Is this one
do
meter?
more research.
Just one meter?
I'd have to look it up. Yeah, I'd have to look it up. I don't remember what the.
Over
this one-
470,000 gallons for that.
I know, you guys, come on, in a quarter.
In a month.
Yeah.
that's-
In a month.
The other one thing I always like to point out, just because I think it's fair, the Quail Springs Village Apartments always lands on here, and I always just want to say, state, that's a lot of residents.
Yeah.
yeah,
And they're all very average users or sometimes
Yeah,
low
right.
users, but because it's one billed account, it looks really high. So I'd like to point that out.
Well, so if we do change something and we declare ourselves water police, I would like a badge.
I also noticed, Auto Camp doesn't do their laundry, so, and that's probably about a quarter of the water they use. And that's done elsewhere.
yeah.
Then we have some other statistics that I brought you in the past. I'll just continue that. I mean, let me know if it's helpful or not.
No, it's great.
We have some statistics on STRs showing again that in the quarter, the total consumption was 24 in the quarter compared to all customers, which had consumption of 29 units in the quarter. So still STRs are coming in below all customers combined.
How do we know they're an STR?
Right.
Do we have an inventory of STRs?
Self-declared.
Self-declared, so, it's not always accurate because sometimes properties change and we don't get notified. So a homeowner could move out and turn their home into an STR and not notify us, so it's not always accurate, but we were pretty decent. Right, well, our record keeping is good as long as the people give us accurate information.
Couldn't we tell just by looking at how the use of the water is? If there's, regularly 5 days a week where it's not there's no water usage essentially, and then on the weekends it jumps up, couldn't we?
We
don't
just
have
read
that.
once a month, so we wouldn't be able to.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
The county website, if you pull it up, it's got a ton of red dots on there.
Right, but we have,
identified STRs.
Yeah.
but y'all haven't used that yet, that data to identify STRs, right? This is self-declared.
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 Right.
And also what one person uses versus someone else, looking at just weekend use or not. We've had customers come and say that they turn off their water at the meter and they only turn it on to take a shower and then do the laundry and then they shut
really?
it back off again. And we have a couple of those, so
Oh.
it's really hard.
Yeah,
To know how somebody's using their water because everybody uses it so differently.
it's interesting that you put these in the commercial column.
Yeah,
We agree.
Good.
I mean, that's not, the state doesn't call them commercial, but for our purposes
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
I'm equating that to the other, I mean, it could be in housing, I guess, but I think it's more commercial than housing. So this is just an internal
Good.
designation.
Good.
Just an idea. I can research that a little bit more because we do have that new data log tool that we got, and we can call up a couple of them and see if they want to volunteer. We can pull that data to see if it's flat Monday through Thursday and spikes up Friday
Dr.
through
Thomas.
Sunday, so.
I don't think there's any like weekend only STRs. They're pretty much occupied on random.
I don't know, just in my neighborhood, I
Yeah.
mainly see them on the weekends.
It's
Yeah.
interesting to see.
I have a neighbor that's constantly occupied
Yeah.
for STR. There's maybe 1 or 2 days a week that they're not occupied. There's no reason.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of us being a member of MBCA has an inventory of STRs. I don't know how concise it is and how
Yeah.
accurate it is, but it's more than the county. So maybe
It's a couple of years old.
No, Janet
You're
keeps
talking
up.
what Janet did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if she's done it lately.
So quickly, when.
But she's done that where she's combed through the,
County has a list of all.
yeah, we never were able to get it.
There-
At NBCA wasn't.
Is there a possibility for the water district to get the notices like we get when they get a permit in the neighborhood?
If it's within.
I've signed up for so many.
Okay,
things, and
all
they're
right.
Very sporadic and very few.
Yes.
So-
If we get one, can we give it to you?
Yeah, and that's what every song.
Yeah.
Those county planners are now contractors. You know what I mean? So they're not even staff now. So you couldn't even form a relationship with them and expect to get it. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I think it's tough because some would have more water features than others, so there's not STRs are equal. You
Well, that
know,
too.
the sampling of them, or you did all of them, would be more reasonable, but I think
Yeah.
more. Like there's one that has a lazy river, you know, and so that.
Lazy
Yeah,
river.
Any, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, I know a gentleman in our neighborhood who SDRs on the weekends, but lives there during the week. So you just,
Yeah.
there's just, they vary so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
You know.
So for clarification, it says commercial 24, that's 24 units average for vacation rentals
For the quarter,
for the quarter. So
Yes.
that's 8 per month.
8 per month.
Yeah.
Versus 29 for all customers, which includes the STRs. So that doesn't carve the STRs.
Oh, okay. So they're part of that average.
Actually bring down,
Yeah.
the average.
But is that all commercial customers? That's all the commercial, residential and commercial?
That is all customers.
Okay, okay, yeah. Just checking, but all customers.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting little age there.
Interesting. That is really. Any other questions?
I don't.
CAC Chair David Carrillo, do you have any comment?
One comment, it's kind of funny because we look for revenue and we get revenue from our water, and so if somebody has a high bill and they're paying it, it's giving us revenue. So it's kind of like hard to.
Yeah.
Why are we gonna slap them down?
That's why it's an interesting business, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's only industry that buy our water, but don't buy enough, don't buy a lot.
Buy our product, but don't buy a lot. Yeah, right. I know. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
That's my comment.
Mhm.
Weird place to be.
Good point.
Yeah, we didn't, we already noted too that we're not exploring the reason. I mean, we've got a fairly recent agricultural thing happening out in some of this, way out in Sunfair area now too. Come to think of it, she might be on a well. But anyway, it's,
So I do
Talk
have a
about water.
question on page 43, acre feet, 1,121. Is that the total amount for the year?
That's that is for the quarter.
Or quarter?
Quarter is sorry, no. Rolling 12 months. It's a rolling 12 months ended 12/31/24.
Our
Yeah.
average is roughly 1,300 acre feet. a
Yes, it
year
couldn't
is
be
what
for
we
the-
pump Out, we have some loss, of course, you always
Yeah.
gonna have loss. Yeah, that's pretty typical. For consumption.
But remember, the high water mark used to be 1,600 acre feet a year. That was about 10 years ago.
Oh, that's what was being consumed 10 years ago? That could be right.
Was what?
1,600.
Oh,
Yeah, that could be right. So it's down.
It's come down quite a bit.
and how many units are in an acre foot?
Well, how many? units?
7.
Oh,
I don't know.
Divide that out.
That's okay. But I don't have to know. That's all right.
We can get that for you.
Yeah. Kathleen would probably know.
Well, okay, so here's an acre foot. There's the conversion, 488,419 units
Okay.
in an acre, or sorry, not in an acre foot. That's the total for the 1,100
Okay.
acre feet. But
It's okay. I don't have to know.
yeah,
And an acre foot, for those that aren't familiar, imagine a football field filled with 1 foot of water.
we're ready for a motion. Is there a motion from the board to approve the second quarter financial report ending December 31, 2024?
So moved.
We'll use David.
Okay,
Oh,
Do you want a second?
second.
General Manager Johnson, a roll call?
President Sloan,
Aye.
Vice President Doolittle.
Yes.
Director Fick,
yes.
Director Drosler.
Yes.
Director Short.
Yes.
Please don't ever change your seats because I got that down.
We'll try not.
Thank you very much. Motion carried. Item asset disposals and asset Panda software update. Thank you again, Finance and Roman.
It's me again. All right. We'll try and make this quick. So this topic is about, it's to provide an update on the Asset Panda software, as well as how we're progressing with handling and tracking those assets in the new software. So in 2023, late 2023, the district subscribed, sorry, I have another slide for this, but the district subscribed to Asset Panda software to enhance asset tracking and asset auditing. And a large undertaking, first of its kind in district history, that's not on the slide, but records for many assets were acquired, for assets that were acquired before 2008 are very limited. We have often lacking detailed descriptions or component cost details, so it might be a lump sum described as shop tools and equipment. And so, you know, when we look at the files, there's a ledger sheet with an amount, and we don't know what it is. We don't even know where to begin to look for it, to, you know, audit whether we have it. So as we're working through implementing this software and getting everything loaded into it, I wanted to try to do a little bit of cleanup before we start putting bad data into the software. And so that's what I'm hoping to accomplish today. We are now completed in phase 1A, which is our IT equipment and attractive expendables. We've loaded all of that, and we continue to do so as new activity occurs. So attractive expendables, you may have heard us talk about that before. They are not capital assets. They were not previously tracked in financial software. They were tracked very sporadically. And so now we're able to put that information into this database. Any IT equipment costing $300 or more and attractive expendables such as tools, small machines like a saw or something like that, costing $750 or more will be tracked in Asset Panda. The next phase will be to collaborate with admin and ops to barcode and establish routine audits for these items that we've already loaded into Asset Panda, so IT and attractive expendables. Phase 2A, which is where, so we're doing some of this simultaneously, but phase 2A, which is where I'm currently bringing this list of assets to the board to request permission to write these off the books, because that in my mind is the only place they exist, is on the books. They are assets that go back to, they have those generic descriptions. They go back before, they were acquired before July of 1990. So they're at least 34 plus years old, not likely to be in our possession any longer. They probably were surplused, you know, years ago. And they're fully depreciated. So that means that the asset value and the depreciation nets to zero, and it disposing of these assets from the books will not have an impact on the net asset value on the books because they already zero out. Again, no impact to the district's net asset value when written off. I have a list included here on other pages 46 and 47. The detail we have, some of which we were able to confirm that we did not have any longer. Some of which we don't have enough information to even begin to search. And so that total is $67,634.73 in assets that my recommendation is that we write those off the district's books without further attempts to identify them. I don't know how we would.
You can't find the office furniture from 1966.
I
Man,
don't know where to begin.
that'd be.
That's kind of a shame, actually.
It's an antique.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So that's really, you know, instead of bringing this forward, this has been on the district's books forever. And, you know, we need to do a lot of cleanup things. Making sure that what is on the district's books in terms of assets is actually in our possession.
Mhm.
These are just the really obvious things. They're so old and they're so generic. And, you know, the fact that they are already fully depreciated makes them,
Yeah.
in my mind, you know, a very easy decision to write off. Let me see if I'm skipping anything. I did want to talk about the future phase, which will be loading the remainder of the mobile type assets. So these are also mobile type assets, but once we clear these out, we'll plan to load the remainder of the mobile type assets into Asset Panda and start barcoding and auditing those. So then we'll start searching for those physical assets. You know, hopefully we'll have a little more information, but I didn't mention this, but I mentioned it in the report, in the staff report. The reason these assets are so generic, and this doesn't make sense, but this is how it was explained to me, is that the auditors, prior to 2008, when I started with the district, the auditors were writing up the assets on the books every year. So they were still able to do that kind of work for us then. They can't now. They can't, they can only audit. They can't do any actual
Input.
Exactly. And so back then they could, and so they would come in at the end of the year, just take these files and put them on the books and, you know, without any, you know, detailed information. And so we have these really bad records going back. We're doing much better now.
One
with our
horse, one
records.
saddle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing much better with our records now. So, you know, we don't anticipate this is going to be a problem with the newer assets, but with the old assets, it's definitely an issue. And once we get through that phase of actually locating and barcoding and auditing the rest of these types of assets, we'll go into the non-mobile assets. So things like tanks and boosters, things that, you know, aren't going anywhere. So we're not as concerned about those, you know, getting lost or misplaced or, you know, the worst. So that is definitely the lowest priority. So for today, what I am requesting is a approval to dispose $67,634.73 in old identifiable / missing assets from the district's books. And I'd be happy to take any questions. I know I went through that kind of quickly.
Vice President Doolittle.
Well, I just have a few questions. I mean, I think this is all great. I think this report is very well prepared and I understand where you're coming from. I just had a couple things. So there's a 5,000 number, there's a 300 number, there's a 750 number. So I'm understanding that you guys are going to now track any IT piece of equipment costing $300 or more, right? And then any attractive expendable costing $750 or more.
Correct.
But what does then those exceeding the district's 5,000 capitalization threshold, what does that mean?
$5,000, they become an asset. So
Oh,
those
that's all it
already
is. Okay,
as
all
an
right,
asset.
okay,
The attractive expenses and the IT,
okay,
a lot of that because it was below the $5,000
Right.
capitalization threshold
okay,
was not on the books at all.
okay.
It was an expense and it was nowhere really to be tracked. We had some copies of invoices here and there.
We have tracking per department, but it was done, on Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And now this is going to be all.
Yeah, yeah.
Covering capacity accounted.
Yeah, it's gonna be in the
It
database.
wasn't tracking, it was just not done as efficiently as it should be going forward.
Yeah, it was a little more haphazard. I think it's gonna be more organized and now we're gonna be able to also audit that on a regular basis, which we should be doing to make sure that we still have those items.
Okay, that's all from me.
Director Fick?
Okay. On page 47, the bottom is 71,000. So that's the original purchase price of those things way back then?
The 71,682, yeah. That's
Okay.
correct.
And the 4,000 is for what you've been able to identify up in there, which is,
4,000, yes, I was able to identify that little bit that was still in our possession with relative certainty. And so that leaves 67,634.73 to write off.
okay. And then just another question, they call it Panda. Why do they call it? Just because it's
As the Panda, I don't know. Kenya always calls it Panda Express. Our accounting technician.
Yeah, it's different.
That's why they put that name. Yeah, it's an interesting name, isn't it?
Because it gives you black eyes,
I hope not.
trying to figure it out.
No, I think actually we're pretty satisfied with this software overall. Then
Yeah.
really great way to organize our assets and made it less strenuous.
Yeah, it's a big project, getting everything in there and actually starting to audit. It's a big project. It's amazing that it's never been done.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, where do you start?
Yeah,
It's a good start, though.
thank you.
Yeah.
that's it for me.
Director Charles?
Yeah, I'm glad you're doing it. Sounds good. Start fresh now.
Director Short?
Yeah, obviously this was a long time coming. I'm just curious to, what took so long?
Yeah, it's really an overwhelming project, without having everything barcoded out there, how do you identify, once it gets out there in the field and
They
use,
track it.
how do you, identify that this asset on the books is that piece of equipment or that item, without some sort of a tracking mechanism,
Realization.
Yeah, and so it's really, it's big undertaking.
That's it. For Thomas. There's something called the Government Accounting Standards Board, I think it's called, and they put out something called GAAP, which is the generally accepted accounting standards that are used by everybody in the United States of America that does this kind of stuff. And they also put out, I believe it's them that also puts out rules for how auditors audit. And so that drives a lot of what we in this operation have to comply with. And there's been a trend, we use somebody called NVS to do some of our cost analysis stuff. It's just a single project I've learned to find out exactly where every penny is going so that we can explain to people why we have the rates that we have. It's as simple as that, I think. Am I on track?
Allocation on it? Is that the cost allocation plan? Is what you're looking
Yeah.
at with NBS?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually helping us develop methodologies for our new overhead rates. So it's called indirect cost allocation. And so whereas our overhead rates were decades old, we're going to develop some new rates with them, and preliminary information indicates those rates are going to be much higher than what they have been, those overhead rates. In order for us to know the full cost of what a program like CIRP was costing us. When I looked at, so I did a little bit of just with that. Oh, well, I won't get into that. I'm getting into the weeds.
There's also categories of depreciation too, where certain things are depreciated at a certain rate over a certain number of years, and there's different, what, 8 or 10,
Mhm.
8 categories of how they calculate those kind of things too, because you mentioned depreciations at one point in the DAC chair. Anything?
So how about everything under $300 are like nuts, bolts,
Hammers.
things that they use? Are they gonna have like bins
iPhones like this.
that are barcoded and
Yeah.
and kept track of, so you have stuff in stock, you know how much is in there?
That'll be inventory.
That'd be-
That's inventory, and we already have items in inventory, but those are, that's in and out. It's a constant flow in and out. And something that won't be part of this project, because that's really something that's controlled in operations. But yes, there will be a system for that as well. I mean, there is a system, there's gonna be a better system.
We're working on a better system right
Yeah.
now.
Right, and when is it going to be checked on? Like every month or bi-monthly?
Every day.
Or at the end of each day?
Each employee is responsible for their vehicles as well, so they have to go through and they do a weekly checklist to make sure all the inventory matches as well. So, yeah.
And we do 2 inventory counts a year as well. So in coordination, operations does that with finance. So we ask them to go and count all the inventory and report that back to us. So, yeah.
Sounds great.
If nothing further, is there a motion from the board to approve the disposal of the attached list of old, unidentifiable, missing assets in the amount of $67,634.73?
I make that motion.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
And we have a second. General Manager Johnson, a roll call, please.
President Lowen,
Aye.
Vice President Doolittle.
Yes.
Director Pick.
Yes.
Director Johnsberg.
Yes.
Director Short.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Motion carried. That pretty, they did. Reports and comments for informational purposes only on subjects not covered by the agenda. Opinions of individual directors are not necessarily the opinions of the board or district staff. No action will be taken. The board may provide staff with requests for future agenda items. President Doolittle.
Oh, I just wanted to share, I haven't attended any meetings, but that I've been reading this book called Ecology of Fear. And just a few things I wanted to share with you, that Mojave Desert fossil age pack rat middens, plant materials, tell researchers about historic drought. And that there's a book called The Geomorphology of Desert Environments that I wish that the district would buy for me. It's $700, so I don't know, maybe it's 400.
Maybe an asset panda.
Yeah. So the Landers earthquake coincided with a different view of how earthquakes occur. Before this, it was thought that there were predictable patterns with large earthquakes. And this earthquake in 1992 aligned more with the chaos theory of earthquakes. And the LA region has an earthquake debt due to accumulated strain, but that's something I never thought about. And then faults can communicate great distances through the transfers of this stress, and Landers showed this, they think. And the official timeframes of earthquakes are meaningless. Anyway, but we tend to think this classic uniformitarian assumption that the present is the key to the past and therefore to the future is likely to prove a dangerous fallacy. And an example of this is climatic recurrence intervals. For example, we talk about 100-year flood. Those are simply well-informed guesses based on brief instrumental records of the average frequencies of such events. We have such a small period of time where we've tracked this. And so it doesn't imply that storms or floods occur and are fixed cycles with regular periodicity. For flood control purposes, the 100-year timeline is usually taken as the design standard in engineering dams and runoff channels. And you guys have heard me before say that, climate change is really impacting that. And the last thing I want to share is that the Landers earthquake, again, 1992, provided the first conclusive evidence of a species of seismic wave called a killer pulse that could prove especially lethal to high-rise structures, which something like our reservoirs. Killer pulses differ from ordinary seismic shaking in that they literally yank the ground out from underneath structures, which researchers called seismic fling, up to 15 feet in a few seconds. I like that little phrase, seismic fling. Anyway, so I wanted to share that. And then I guess, as you guys know, a couple of days ago, the Department of Fish and Wildlife was here talking to people in Yucca about the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act. And somebody just told me today that the DFW said that, there was nothing they could do. They were telling people this. And so, I think the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And, as I said before, there's downstream impacts to these regulatory things. And I certainly recognize that as a board member, and that's something that we're going to have to face as a district. Okay, all from me.
Director Fick? Okay, on the Landers quake, if I remember correctly, they said that they didn't know it was there when it hit.
That's
So
right.
then they
That's
said,
right.
okay, it'll hit it again in 150 years, and it's been 30 years, so another 120
Yeah, but
years.
that doesn't matter. That's what this guy said. Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't
Yeah.
believe them. I would go with the others.
Yeah.
No. On the Joshua Tree issue, on behalf of MBCA, I did a bit of an investigation on high desert waters. Curious of 3 parcels, and yeah, I found out that they found parcels that were very dense, 3 to 7 times denser than the average. The average is around 20 to 25 Joshua trees per acre. They were finding them with 134 trees within an acre and a half, and other numbers. So that escalated the situation, which it's anecdotal and it's believable, but they called it the average, which they have a tendency to do that. So that's why, when I questioned the president of High Desert Water on this, he said, no, we did it. And I investigated a bit more. And I did put comments into the mission field. And the thing I felt was the most wrong thing that happened, the things they said that they couldn't change were the fees of them. But
On the take.
Yeah, on the take. But the fact that they're saying that a Joshua tree has a radius of protection of 50 feet, it's rather arbitrary. It was from a 36-foot measure of a root of a Joshua tree that was 36 from the tree. So I was highly recommending to be at the most 25 feet and possibly just drop zone. In other words, if the tree is 15 feet tall, it's 15 feet around or whatever. But usually, knowing bureaucracy, they're going to go just by a standard measure of maybe 20 feet. And that's what they should do, because it's ridiculous to have Joshua trees measured as 50-foot radius. If you do a 50-foot radius, that's 1.7 acres of land around it. That's just weird.
Yeah.
Is that 50 feet even for us, like a pup?
Probably.
Okay, I think it is. Did they say what the fee would be per take permit, even though you're not taking it, you're just waving to it as you work in the street?
That one I got to get it.
No, okay, I didn't get to attend, so I was hoping to catch up on that.
Yeah. So, we do know Drew Kaiser, who's the one responsible for this.
Yeah, I'm friends with him.
So yeah, and then also at the ASBCSD dinner that happened Monday night on St. Patrick's Day, I did wear green. And the topic was interns, but this is for the East Valley Water District. And they're rather large. They have a huge water treatment plant and they have mucho money, and they also have a large population. So they have the resources to have such a large intern process of recruiting high schoolers and junior college people. There's right in there, and they actually pay them over the summer. They pay them for up to 80 hours. I don't know, $15 an hour or something like that to be interns, and they've actually had successful 2 or 3 year employment of young interns. So that was a pretty model situation. You'll give us your report on how your class is going, I suppose. So, okay, well, that's about it for me for now.
Director Jarlsberg.
I wanted to report on the tour that I took last week, but I cannot possibly cover everything tonight, obviously. And I wanted to invite anybody who would like to talk to me about it. Call me and I'll talk about it more. But I did want to say that I attended the, let's see, we called it the Lower Colorado River Tour, put on by the Water Education Foundation. And it was legally or officially the 12th to the 14th of March, except that I went to Las Vegas the night before it actually started and was able to ride. I did want to mention I rode a bus from Ontario where I parked my car. And there were only 2 people on this bus that seats 50 people. So I sat right next to the driver and we talked driving. We're both drivers, so had fun talking to him. But I noticed in driving to Las Vegas, which was about a 4-hour drive, that we went through an area with Joshua trees on 40 that were basically dying. Very sick looking Joshua trees in that area, around Barstow, I think, a little bit after Barstow on the way to Las Vegas. And it was about 4,000 feet. It was disturbing. It was not the fire area where there were fires. It just got me thinking about what's happening to our Joshua trees in a lot of areas. It was like a forest, but they were skimpy. Anyway, I just wanted to note that. I think Yucca Valley has some of the most healthy looking trees that I've seen for a while, other than in the national park. And I did want to say I'm supporting the national parks by buying t-shirts. And I wore it tonight because I want to be an activist on the behalf of the national parks and encourage everybody to be, obviously. Anyway, the tour started from Las Vegas and ended basically at Salton Sea. And it was absolutely amazing. The first, it was a tour of mostly dams, and a lot of people probably don't even know how many dams are on the Colorado River. Only half of the Colorado River, actually. The first one was the Hoover Dam, which was amazing, and Lake Mead. And that we took a day to do that, ended up having lunch at the Hoover Dam Spillway House where we could see the water. And then we had an expert on the bus with us throughout the tour, Keith Scholar, who talked about a lot of the history, the politics, the treaties, lots of information. And on the afternoon of Wednesday, the first day of the tour, we had a representative, the chairman of the Fort Mojave Indian tribe, and that's what I found very interesting. We had a couple of people that we came under the bus and talked to us about the tribe experience with the water. And then we took another, we arrived at a Havasu National Wildlife Refuge and started a boat tour, a boat cruise from there, which was about an hour and a half, and ended up in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. And the boat took us under the London Bridge. That was like a little bonus to the trip. It was pretty amazing. And we spent the night there in Lake Havasu City that night. Next morning, we headed out to something called Mark Wilmer Pumping Plant. Now I know a little bit more about what a pumping plant is. And during all of these stops at dams, we had people that worked there that gave us a physical tour and often a lecture and lots of information about what they were doing and how they fit into the whole river. That afternoon, we ended up in the Palo Verde diversion dam, which is not a typical dam. It doesn't back up a reservoir. It actually moves the water downstream, keeps it moving. It creates elevation so that there's some gravity feed that keeps the water moving. And then from there, we went to the Imperial Dam. And this is Thursday. And let's see, we ended up in Yuma East Wetlands. And then we went back and forth on the river between Arizona and California a few times.
Wow.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
We arrived at the wetlands and met another woman. Actually, it was the chairwoman of the Indian tribe Quechan. I'm not quite sure about the pronunciation, but we ended up staying that night, Thursday night, at the casino that's run by that tribe. And let's see. Friday morning, we took off from the casino to Warren H. Brock Reservoir and toured Imperial Irrigation District. And this is when we started seeing the agriculture that is supported by the Colorado River. And they were saying 80% of the products, of the agricultural products from the area, mostly Imperial County, but also on the other side of the river around Yuma in Arizona, provide 80% of the winter crop for the country. And they didn't even talk about the world. I'm sure the world gets some of it too. But it's pretty amazing, the kind of products. The farmers are definitely worried, concerned about water. They are adjusting their crops to be more water, yeah. And then we went on to Sunny Bono Salton Sea National Wildlife Refuge, which was another interesting stop. And then we ended up our day at lunch at the North Shore Beach and Yacht Club at Salton Sea. And I actually posted a picture myself there. That was we had rain on Thursday, but it didn't change our trajectory. We managed fine. It seemed to stop rain when we had to get on the bus. It was pretty cool. And then, but all the other days were just beautiful, just gorgeous days that made the whole tour exceptional. And then we, after lunch, we went to Coachella Canal and irrigated crops, had a tour, and I got a fresh artichoke. We stopped at a field of artichokes, which was amazing, and talked to the farmer. And I happened to pick one up off the ground and ate it last night. It was wonderful. The flavor was amazing. Anyway, we got so much information and had so many experts. There were about 20 people that spoke to us along the way, either at the hotels or in the bus or on the land. I did want to mention that there were about 45 people on the bus consistently. And one of the big concerns has been what's going on in the federal administration for funding. And there were 5 people from the Bureau of Reclamation. Oh, I'm sorry, never mind. That's California. There were 4 people from the Interior Department Office of Inspector General who were unable to attend because their funding was pulled, which was bad. They would have been a good addition to the tour. But anyway, I have a little bit of information here if anybody wants to look it over in more detail. It helped me put into context our relationship to the Colorado River, which we really don't have one, except that it supports basically everything south of Highway 10. And the last place that is near us where the Colorado River aqueduct supplies water to this area, basically around Palm Springs, is at Whitewater. And otherwise, it's not north of that at all, as far as access, that we might have to it.
Who was the sponsor of this tour?
Water Education Foundation. Let's see. Oh, I don't have the. Anyway, we get, I actually have been getting the emails on JBWD email. And they post, they have a number of things. If you look them up, they have a number of events happening. I think the next one is the Upper Colorado River Tour, which comes out of Sacramento. And there's a number, and there's Water 101 and, you know, a variety of things that are available online as well as in person. And it's Nick Gray is the one that was coordinating these tours, and he is a professional, very good. I highly recommend it. I did want to say that this was not an official tour on behalf of JBWD. I paid for it myself, and because I wanted to be educated on this. I hear so much about the Colorado River and the politics of the states that are demanding off of the water or have needs. One of the things I did learn is that I believe it's New Mexico, Arizona, maybe Nevada, that they have an arrangement to access water off of the tributaries that come to the Colorado River, and it doesn't impact the agreements for the Colorado River water. So that if there are these various smaller rivers that go into the Colorado, they have access to it immediately right there in their state.
Is it an annual tour? This is the first time.
I don't think this was the first, but I don't know if it's annual. It's every so often anyway.
Glad you got to go.
Yeah,
Seems fascinating.
yeah, amazing, amazing. Actually, the Hoover Dam was obviously the most impressive, and also the Lake Mead and the other Lake Powell, which are kind of there are the storage units actually. Even I believe Los Angeles has storage water in Lake Mead, and it's very complicated how they break it up. And they're in the process of kind of fixing that so that it's obvious what portion of the water is actually belongs to LA. Like if a part of the state has a more need than LA does, they're not going to take LA's water away. Interesting. I can't imagine the bookkeeping of it. So, and I didn't attend any other meetings that I can recall. So thank you for the time.
Very short.
I also attended the special districts dinner on the 17th. We sat with people from Chino Valley Fire District, and one of the assignments was to talk about what we've done that kind of ties into the category of, you know, creating this pipeline for local schools to fill jobs in special districts. And it was kind of nice to actually be able to say something that we've done in this matter. So just want to say congratulations to the general manager for getting that done. I also went to the MWA meeting on March 13th. They actually, usually these things, they go through them really fast, but this one was actually really informative. They had a bidding dispute on a project, and they kind of just went through the process of how they solved that. And it was very interesting to hear. And they approved an Ordinance 9 application granting water services to a new CHP waste station in Cajon Pass. And earlier we were kind of talking about late fees and the late tags. It kind of triggered a memory I had when I was campaigning, that somebody had said, and a couple of people had said, that the tags would blow off doors. So I know I brought that up 2 years ago now. Just want to know if anything has changed in that.
We place the tag where we think is gonna be the most safe spot, and we also photograph that the
Mhm.
tag has been placed. But sometimes it can be tricky and the wind can be tricky,
Yeah.
but we try to be very thoughtful. Do you have anything you wanna add?
But I get the best quality tags we can.
Okay.
But aside from taping it up and
Mm.
Yeah.
we
the field guys do, try to keep it in place.
Okay, that's all for me.
Well, last night, we were invited to attend a sort of emergency preparedness meeting up at Copper Mountain Mesa in their community room there. And Kathleen Radnich, our outreach person, did a presentation there. And it had maybe 3 tables full of all sorts of examples of different kinds of things. And we gave away little packets of water. We had a whole case of those that the district purchased. We also gave away a box of MREs that I happen to have. My argument was that if they tried the MRE, they would make a better effort to store and save some of their own food, so they wouldn't have to eat those. It was but it is something that would definitely keep people alive. And I did eat one of them or tried one of them, and it was it didn't have any bad effect.
Oh, okay.
But it's not exactly a delightful meal, but anyway, it was just it was a good presentation. There were lots of questions and stuff. There were maybe, I'm guessing there were something like 16 people there. The chairman of the advisory committee, Dave Carrillo, attended also. And he was very resourceful. You were very resourceful, David. We had an area, it was mostly one table that had maybe 6 or 8 different kinds of handouts that people could access. And Kathleen, she would pick one up and she would talk about the information that's on the handout, and David would jump up and grab the pile and he'd hand them down the rows to people there. And he did this, probably half a dozen times, I would guess. And it was very much appreciated. And I can tell you too, my impression is, and David could speak to this, is that they are serious about preparing for the next big disaster.
Yeah.
A lot of questions about purifying water, making it safe to drink. It was might be 2 different things. It was good. And we're gonna follow up at some point. I think it's the first Saturday in May. We're gonna have a booth up there too, where we're gonna do a presentation outside, not necessarily a presentation, but an exchange with people. We'll have lots of chairs where we can sit and talk to people about all kinds of stuff, which is our strength. People can, at the farmer's market, people can sit with us for hours if they want to and talk about stuff. That's what we do. It's one of the early reasons why I started attending, was if Kathleen is engaged with somebody and somebody else comes up and she's already engaged, then they may wander off and we'll lose them. So I'm there assisting her in engaging the public with all of this water stuff, and also listening to them too. And Thomas, you're certainly invited if you're not doing anything on Saturdays. There we are. I'm there at 6:30 till about 1:30 is when we leave. Come on over and drink out of our jug. And maybe I'll buy you some ice cream. I don't know. Depends on how generous I feel that day. But anyway, we're going to hear a lot more from them up there. This is another thing they're doing up there in that mesa that distinguishes them. Similarly with is happening out in Landers too, where you have these community groups, very cohesive community groups, and they expect things from us, which is great. It's great. That's all I had. General Manager's report.
Thank you. So last week's CAC meeting was canceled yet again due to lack of quorum. So thank you to Thomas and we for joining. I think that's going to solve our quorum issue. And thank you to both David and Debbie for being there. And we still got to share some information, just didn't get to have an official meeting, but that is, I think, solved now. Well 15 is offline. There's a mechanical concern. It's not our highest producing well. But one of our operators noticed a sound that didn't seem right, which is why you want to have very good trained operators, because if you and I walked in there, you may not have noticed that. And so there is a mechanical concern. It is critical infrastructure, and we have an emergency service established with Lane, who's going to come next week and diagnose the issue. One of the things with that particular site that's troubling, one of those 4 site kind of situations is when that's the one that's on a parcel that's on a piece of land that we bought, so it's not very much land. And they put housing over that well unit that doesn't have any way to access it, so the whole entire building has to get lifted off, removed so that we can access it. Just some of those things that we need to really think about when we're replacing infrastructure. The good news about that, though, is remember, we have this chromium 6 issue that we're facing, and we need to profile our wells. And what that means is we need to do water sampling at different depths of the well. And the only way you can do that is when your well is offline. So we're going to use this as a good opportunity to do some profiling, because that particular well, we have some information that may have very low chromium levels at a deeper depth.
Oh.
So TBD, don't get too excited, but just want you to know these are things that we're looking at. Okay, the state has another new policy that requires our district and all districts across the state to update our cross-connection control policy. And I know all of you are avid readers, and you know that the district already has one. It's in Article 8 of our rules and regulations. For context, the cross-connection program rules were introduced way back in 1987, and our district established that policy in 1998 with some minor updates since then. But this time, the state has had a complete overhaul of those rules, and we're required to comply. We have to submit our updated policy by July 1st, and our in-house water quality specialist is going to be working with a consultant to write those rules to make sure they comply with, I believe it is, it's not right out of my head. State Regulation 17. I will get back to you on that one. It has to comply with the state regulations and has to work with our current best recommendations for cross connection. So if you're not familiar with cross connection, if you have a potential hazard at your home or business, you need to have a backflow device installed to prevent backflow from your home or your business from getting into our system. And that's essentially what this is just to update those rules. We already have those policies in place, and the consultant that we are working with said that we're already very proactive compared to a lot of the districts that he's working with. So that's good. We'll be bringing that policy to the board approximately in May for approval to go to the state in July. And then those will be incorporated into our rules and regulations, and the current article will be removed. Big project though. I attended on the 10th a pipeline commission meeting at Mojave Water Agency, which was located this time in Apple Valley. The next pipeline commission meeting is in June, and it's here in our boardroom. So please attend if you haven't before. It's actually a very good meeting. Unfortunately, that meeting was also canceled due to lack of quorum, but the scheduled presenters still presented their information. We just didn't have an official meeting. And one of the key presenters was the engineering firm Zanjaro. And they're working with Mojave Water Agency on a regional urban water management plan, a water shortage contingency plan approach. They are presenting that to the MWA board, I believe tomorrow. And if you remember, the last time we did our urban water management plan was in 2020 to be submitted in 2021, but that didn't happen, and it got submitted in 2022 after I was in this role. That plan cost the district nearly $120,000 in costs with the engineering firm. But this regional approach is, if we work with MWA, it will cost share costs, depending on if their board MWA approves it in this manner, it would be $15,000. So spreading those costs over economies of scale, using the brain powers from lots of different districts, and looking at urban water management from a macro level and not just this micro level, And our district would have a whole chapter in that plan. And then we get to share the brain power amongst all the different districts. So I think it's a really great opportunity for us. And also cost savings, but I don't think that that's the most important piece, although it's an important piece. Okay, on the 13th, I had the opportunity to represent our district on the Water Technology Career Panel at Copper Mountain College alongside other local industry professionals. It was the most well-attended career panel at CMC to date, is what we were told. It's definitely rewarding to inspire some future professionals and share insights on our industry. I was the only female water person up there. Thought that was interesting, but very, very fun, and was very happy to share our expertise with young folks and middle-aged folks and older folks that are all possibly interested in working in the water industry in the future. CMC is approving or has approved 5 water technology courses that are all sitting at the state chancellor's office. And they, as soon as they get those back, they're going to be hiring instructors to teach us courses as early as fall of this year. And last but not least, I met with yesterday with the USGS team. And we had that continued discussion. If you remember, they did a presentation back in November. We talked about the tasks that they presented. The first task is to evaluate our current water supplies and a long-term supply forecast. Second task was the well profiling that I talked to you about with Lane, but they can't do that right away because they're also affected by the federal issues that everyone else is, but Lane can do it sooner. So we might do something that we can work together on that, but USGS is very interested in doing the task 1, which will take about 2 years. And that's finding out how much water we actually have and helping predict how long that will last. So very long-term program that we have to work with them on. And they're putting together a proposal for that I'll be bringing to the board and hopefully budgeting for next fiscal year, which also aligns very well with one of the items in our new strategic plan. And 2 more little updates. Director of Operations recruitment is active. We have been accepting applications. You'll start seeing it more out in social media pretty soon. We're hopeful to get a very well qualified operator in that position. It needs to be at least a D4, hopefully a D5. T3, 10 years of experience. So it's a very, very highly qualified position. In the meantime, we do have our interim director of ops, Ray Polish, who's doing a fantastic job getting a lot of catch-up work done and planning, and things are running, very smoothly under his direction. And very last, I received an email from Jane Rogers from the superintendent of National Park, and she just wanted to share and help and everyone spread the news that the west entrance will be closed approximately April 7th to 10th, April 7th to the 10th, right here.
This one.
This one here, and that's due to them moving the gate into the
Oh,
park.
good.
And she just wanted to make sure rumor mills didn't go around. It's planned. It was supposed to be for 2 weeks now. It looks like it'd be 3 or 4 days, and the dates are tentative. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for the general manager?
I have a couple of questions. One is, oh yes, congratulations, just a round of applause for our general manager who, had the vision for these classes at CMC and has been working on it for like 9 years, 10 years. So, that's really great. And it's gonna, make a difference in people's lives and to the district as well. So congratulations, very proud of you. So when the USGS left, we were asking them to give us a menu proposal, not just propose on that one thing, but there was a list of things we wanted them to propose to, bid on, kind of. They were going to give us a proposal of those things.
There were more than those 3 tasks that they proposed.
I think there was more than that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I can go back and look at the presentation, which I wanted to anyway.
I have the slides and we went through it together
Okay.
when I sat down with.
Okay.
I remember Jeff was here.
Yeah.
And we sat down and went through the slides and did our recollection of what the requests were. And there was about 3
Yeah.
tasks in there.
Okay.
The main one we both remember was doing a study to find out how much water is actually here and a long-term supply forecast. That was first, and that's about a 2-year project, but anything else beyond that, is dependent on that first step.
Like, we wanted to find out about contaminants in the water. That was one of them. So like man-made contaminants that are coming through our sewer systems. So that was one thing we talked about. I know that we talked.
Septic,
Remember that we talked about?
no, through the septic, so,
Right, through the septic.
yeah, not sewer.
Septic. Septic.
So that's one of those ones that.
That was on this menu.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, so I mean, it was a menu. There were several things that we said, I just off the top of my head, I can't remember. And then, you know, I happen to know that our consultant Ray Kolish lives in Joshua Tree now. When we signed that contract, that wasn't shared with us, and I was having the impression that he was going to be traveling back and forth, and it was going to be a great burden and all this sort of stuff. And you know, when you said that he was not going to be attending the board meetings, so it would be a great cost. And I was thinking, well, you know, he's from out of town and all this sort of stuff. Well, it seems to me now, I don't know how any of the other board members feel, but since we are no longer having the operations meetings and there's nothing so far on the agenda that I see for reporting on operations, to me, what you just reported isn't quite enough. And I would, despite the cost, I would like to request, because I can do that as part of my request on the agenda, that he come and present sometime. I'm not saying every time, but I'd be curious to know kind of the work that he's doing and what's happening with operations now that we no longer have any transparency to it.
Well, he doesn't live in Joshua Tree. That's not correct. He does stay here during Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, leaves on Thursday and goes back to Utah. So he's not here. He doesn't live here, but he does have a place that he's staying for 3 nights a week because he can't drive. It's a 5-hour commute, so that's impossible to drive back and forth. So as for presentation, he will be here for the budget meetings in May. So I've asked him to attend those. And it's not about the great cost.
Oh, that's what you said, that we, you know.
Let me clarify
Mm.
that we're limited to 960 hours in the fiscal year for his services, and that's limited by CalPERS. So if he's spending time here, that's time that we take him out of the field. And so that's the main concern. So if he's gonna be here on a 3 or 4 hour meeting, that's tomorrow he wouldn't be able to work because he can only do 32 hours a week.
Right.
So that.
Well, what I would-
Concern, but we
Yeah.
can do some sort of presentation.
I don't think that's an outrageous request, and he doesn't have to stay for the whole meeting. You know what I mean? He can stay for the 20 minutes that he talks and run out of the room when he's done, so.
Yeah, we could do some sort of presentation.
Yeah, I think I really want, you know, I mean, Jane and I got connected to operations and stuff, being on that committee for 4 years. You know, it's, you may not be interested in it, other board members, but I know I am, and I imagine she is as well. And I'm gonna miss that.
I agree. So I'm thinking how we do the customer service presentation every several months, that we give some stats. Maybe we could do something like that and incorporate that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd just be really curious about some of the changes that are occurring. You know, you keep mentioning that, but we don't hear what it is specifically, and I'd like to share in the joy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing to keep in mind too is that his time here is temporary, and when we
Yeah.
have our own full-time person.
That person.
Looking forward to that.
Board meetings.
There was some discussion about what his situation is, I think during the time you were on vacation too. So
I don't
think-
know. The scuttlebutt in the community is that he lives here now with his girlfriend.
His girlfriend
That's-
does stay at home here.
that's what I'm hearing. So that's what I'm hearing.
Live here full time.
Yeah, but anyway, that's what I'm hearing. But you know, yeah, of course, but I don't want to wait until we get that person hired and then that person has to come up to speed. You may want to wait. I don't want to wait.
Well,
And we can ask the other board members to see what they think.
if his hours are limited, I'd rather have him out there keeping.
I
an eye
said
on what's
20
going on.
minutes, but we can have 20 minutes.
It's really minor. It is a minor ask, and I don't mind because I do like
Goodness.
transparency. Since we don't have the operations committee, it would be a good idea to have some sort of update. I can't promise every board meeting, but maybe we.
I said one time. I
Like
said
the
one
customer
time.
Service one where you have something
Yeah.
to look forward to. I think that would be a good thing.
Well, and another reason why I'd like to have him do it is if he's so good, I'd like to see how he does it. You know what I mean? And see what he has to say. And then we get this new guy, and then maybe that kind of sets the expectations for this new woman or man that comes in. So that's another reason why I'd like to see how he does it. So.
The power outage would have been a good thing to present to the board as a whole, how he handled that.
Mhm.
That would have been a good example. Something I do miss is that that blue sheet.
I was gonna say that
We
too.
used to get, and it would show, water loss in particular is the one.
Yeah,
'cause that's
report.
For having the CIRP existing is that justification of not being. We know how much water we're pumping out of the ground, and we know how much water we're selling to our customers, and there's a variance. And if the variance is large, then that suggests leakage. For example, if we can't account for where the water went, that's what we're talking about here. So the blue sheet.
One of the things that we've been working on is updating GeoViewer to actually
All
work
right.
the report the way we want it to. So that report right now is manually done, and I would like it to spit out that report.
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
So it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's great. That'd be great, yeah. Yeah, and then just lastly, shoot, I lost, so never mind. Yeah, never mind, it's gone.
It'll come.
Remember, Thomas, what you? No,
What I was gonna say, you mean, does Thomas remember?
Thomas was gonna
He forgot
ask
something.
a question, but he.
Okay, he forgot his too. I'm so
I
sorry.
won't confess to what I forgot, or not heard.
I did, one response to kind of,
Oh, that's, I remember now.
no, I did, forget to mention, but, President Sloan mentioned it kind of in passing. He and I did go to the Landers meeting, a week ago, Monday. I think it was Monday night.
Monday, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was very informative also. And he did mention after the meeting that it was important to have a presence there from the water district. Normally, apparently, Bighorn lady,
Marina,
that's another name.
Marina.
You know what?
Yeah, Marina, it was not there that time, but she often is there. And I think it's important for us to be there when we can. And it was informative because it kind of takes the place of the MAC meetings that we used to have, because they have a sheriff report there. They have a report from Glenn Harris on behalf of Supervisor Rao. And so I thought it was good to be there.
I did remember the thing, which was, I had asked about hiring of staff. Don't we have some other positions besides the director of ops that we're filling? And I just hadn't heard anything on that.
We're working on looking at the whole organization, and part of what we're going to bring forward on the budget is going to be some changes to some positions. What I can say for operations, the main position open is director of operations. We will be filling in the future a water production operator position, and then we have 2 supervisor positions, and then we need to talk about CARP as its own conversation, but it'll be within the budget.
Thanks. That was it.
Oh,
I
okay.
remembered.
Will you have any input on the teachers they hire at Copper Mountain College?
Well, I don't have input. They've asked me if I know anybody, and I gave them some
Ray.
courses.
Yeah.
They know I'm qualified to teach one of the courses, so who knows? We'll see.
I know my neighbor went up there and pitched some sort of a class that he wanted to teach too. He's an expert on advising businesses how to run their things and stuff. His wife has actually been appointed deputy mayor of the city of Los Angeles, by the way. So the guy, he knows things, but I don't know if it's going to be relevant to the water thing, because water is also business.
Yeah.
Most of the meeting today was about money, not about water. Future meetings, director meetings are listed on the agenda. And is there a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion.
Second.
This meeting is adjourned at 8:47.